Chapter 1311. As time passed, the Galactic Society saw that the three universal civilizations did not take any substantial action. How could they not know that there was something fishy going on? Since they could not do anything to the Black Star Core, the popularity of public opinion gradually decreased. One day, the Supercluster Alliance received an anonymous piece of information. It was the inside story of the Feeney civilization, so they released it without hesitation. After a round of publicity, the public opinion was quickly changed. After many parties competed with each other, the mastermind behind this matter basically got what they wanted and stopped. Without the guidance of public opinion behind the scenes, very soon, only sporadic voices were left on the internet. The Galactic Society did not lack news, and new hot topics attracted the attention of the galactic residents, opening up new debates. However, the impact of this matter had already settled down and awakened many people's dormant thoughts. The various civilizations adjusted their countermeasures and were unwilling to get too involved in the battle between the three universal civilizations and the association. They stopped some private interference, which greatly reduced the resistance of the various beyond Grade A organizations in integrating the black markets. Without the various civilizations working for free, the three universal civilizations sent their immortals to intervene in the various black markets to deal with the immortals of the Black Star Core. The battles between the players were even more unrestrained. In the next month or so, the two sides fought fiercely. Many of the planets where the black markets were located became secret battlefields. With the technical assistance of the army, the various large guilds got rid of a few calamity-grade supers one after another. The name of the cancer of the universe became more and more popular. Han Xiao did not pay attention to the commotion in the outside world. While the two sides were fighting in secret, he spent most of the time in the research lab, continuously reverse engineering SWI-001 and creating new universal treasures to advance his God's trait transformation. On this day, there was finally a breakthrough in the reverse engineering of SWI-001. In the bright research lab, SWI-001's enormous body was fixed in the center. Densely packed, multifunctional mechanical arms were everywhere. From the outside, they looked like scaffolding, all buzzing and operating, performing all kinds of reverse engineering analysis. Mechanical assistants flew in the air around SWI-001, transporting parts from time to time like a swarm of bees. Han Xiao hovered in the air at the same height as SWI-001's head. Beside him was a ring-shaped anti-gravity workstation. A large number of neatly arranged virtual screens surrounded his body, continuously displaying various parameters. He used this workstation to coordinate the research plans of the different teams. The deciphering is finally complete. Han Xiao let out a sigh of relief. After more than a month of analysis, many of SWI-001's modules had been successfully analyzed. The most important one was naturally the memory file, which had been transcoded and exported into readable data. On the virtual screen, a large amount of information was displayed. After removing the redundant data, all that was left was the essence of SWI-001. Han Xiao browsed through the information. The useful information could be divided into three main sections. The first section was the various technologies used by the mechanical body. The second section was the technical blueprints in the memories of the sacrifice mechanics. And the third section was their memories of the unknown civilization. The name of this universal civilization that had been destroyed by the World Tree was Karma Republic in Galactic Common Language. Unlike the three civilizations in the explored universe, the Karma Republic was the only universal civilization in the area it was in. It was the largest universal civilization and had swallowed all the other civilizations in the area, turning them all into their subsidiary civilizations. It had absolute control, and even the territory was distributed by the Karma Republic. They had established a monitoring system and set up a civilization level. They stipulated that the research results of all civilizations had to be reported and copied to the Karma Republic. If there were major breakthroughs, they would be able to increase their civilization points. If they had enough points, the civilization would be upgraded and receive better treatment. They would then expand under their approval. If a civilization did not make any breakthroughs in their research for many years and failed to reach the required points for a cycle, the civilization would be downgraded, and the Karma Republic would take back all the benefits, including the territory. The Karma Republic's galactic society had a strict hierarchy. Although the competition between civilizations ensured a certain degree of vitality, the overall atmosphere of the society was still rather dull. After all development was under the supervision and restriction of the Karma Republic. The ceiling could be seen at a glance. In order to maintain their level or upgrade, most civilizations had no choice but to invest most of their resources into scientific research. Their attitude toward the livelihood of the people was that it was fine as long as they could get by. Most of the people were just muddling along. Under the high control of the Karma Republic, the cost of breaking the law was too high, and there was no hope. Superknowledge was also strictly restricted by the Karma Republic and could not be spread freely. The only way to learn was through the official channels, and after completing their apprenticeship, they would be distributed to different civilizations. If nothing went wrong, with the Karma Republic absorbing the nutrients of so many subsidiary civilizations, their civilization strength would continue to rise. Unfortunately, they encountered the World Tree civilization and were wiped out in the end. Because superknowledge was not spread to the civilians, the Karma Republic controlled the scale of individual civilizations quite well. However, it was also because of this that they lacked high-level combatants. They only had less than 20 beyond grade as, and due to the lack of fighting, they only had 2 peak beyond grade as. There were pros and cons to both. Although the 3 universal civilizations were worried about losing control of their individual strength every day, they had accumulated several times more high-level combatants because of this. The Karma Republic did not have such concerns, but when facing external enemies, they did not have enough high-level combatants. Facing the devastating attacks of the World Tree civilization, the high-level combatants of the Karma Republic were almost completely defeated. In the end, they had no choice but to use a technology called fusion mechanical ascension, which was only suitable for mechanic supers. By gathering the strength of a peak beyond grade A mechanic and a large number of grade A and grade B mechanics, they helped this mechanic break through the limit and become a true mechanical deity, reaching a higher level. However, they failed in the end. Although they obtained an even stronger individual, they did not transform and were defeated by the World Tree civilization's experts in battle. Han Xiao looked at the technical information. The name of the blueprint shown on the interface was Fusion Mechanical Ascension. Other than the known effects of fusion, the side effect was a change in personality, becoming a collective consciousness. This technology didn't reach the goal I expected at the beginning of the design, but it's still a breakthrough. It's not very useful to me, but the mechanical body template after fusion is very powerful. Maybe I can reverse engineer it and imitate its structure to become a new form of the mechanical deity? Han Xiaoxin thought. Although SWI-001 was a fusion of flesh and machinery, the purpose of flesh was to provide a large number of supercells to provide mechanical force for the huge mechanical body, and he had polar channel flow, blood rage. As long as he controlled it well, he might be able to achieve a similar effect. If he could successfully imitate the form of SWI-001, he felt that the mechanical deity would most likely undergo a huge change. Other than fusion mechanical ascension, Han Xiao also obtained a large number of blueprints from the mechanical body's memory file. However, only the peak beyond grade A's memory contained a few gold blueprints. Han Xiao recorded all these technologies and looked at the deciphering interface of the memory chip program. Now that he had finished deciphering the quantum network code of the Karma Republic, the defensive wall had been broken long ago, and he could rewrite SWI-001's artificial intelligence program. Han Xiao hesitated for a moment before closing this interface. He did not want to make any changes before he figured out the connection between SWI-001's biological consciousness and artificial intelligence consciousness. Speaking of which, I wonder if there are any special bonuses from researching SWI-001. The triggering rate of unique talents seems to be a little high. Han Xiao opened the interface and looked at it. During this month's research, he had triggered another unique talent progress, which was now at 75.8%. According to the previous data, he only needed to trigger it 2 more times before the unique talent was formed. However, he did not know how long he would have to wait for these 2 times. Currently, he was only a quarter away from completing it. Han Xiao was now leaning toward using awakening points to fill it up. He did not do so in the past because the progress was too low, but now that he was very close to the maximum, the cost was not high. The players have been online for a while now, and he had accumulated a lot of experience points. Although he was still far away from level 360, leveling up a few times should not be a problem. Moreover, when he used the random reward to draw the mission completion card, he would occasionally get lucky and randomly roll awakening points. Let's give it a try. I think there should be a chance. Han Xiao put all his experience points into leveling up. He did not have enough experience points to level up after reaching level 344. He took out 1 awakening point and put it into the unique talent. A notification popped up. Do you want to use 1 awakening point to increase the progress of a unique talent? Confirm/cancel. Confirm complete. According to the level of the unique talent, 1 awakening point can increase the progress by 2.8%, 3, 2%. The research progress of the unique talent is currently progressing. On average, each awakening point can increase the progress by 3%. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. This was much better than expected. In this case, he only needed 7 or 8 more awakening points to obtain the unique talent. According to the rules of awakening points, 100 awakening points would be enough to activate the prototype of the unique talent. Only after that could he accumulate the progress. If each awakening point was equivalent to 3% of the progress, then the total cost of obtaining a unique talent from nothing would be at least 134 awakening points. He had naturally activated the prototype of the unique talent and slowly accumulated the progress to about 75%, which was equivalent to saving 125 awakening points. Thinking about it this way, it seemed like he had made a huge profit. At most 8 awakening points, which I already have. I don't even need to add any skills. The cost is within an acceptable range. Han Xiao rubbed his hands and turned the awakening points into fuel 1 by 1 with excitement, increasing the progress of the unique talent bit by bit. Very soon, after spending enough awakening points, the progress finally reached 100%. The interface shook and a notification popped up. Unique talent has been awakened. Please choose the main direction of the talent from the following 3 choices. 1. Basic attributes. 2. Special resistances. 3. Main class enhancement. Oh, so this is how it works? Han Xiao raised his brows. He had thought that the abilities of the unique talents were completely random, but it turned out that there was also a certain degree of freedom when it was formed. This reminded him of when he had chosen his race talent, when he was advancing to beyond grade A. Currently, there were not enough choices given. It seemed like the completed unique talent had already been formed. If he used the awakening points to create a prototype from scratch, he might have the most complete customization experience. Han Xiao hesitated for a moment before choosing the main class enhancement option. Main direction has been determined. Please choose the secondary direction of the talent from the following 3 choices. 1. Machinery manufacturing. 2. Virtual technology. 3. Machinery combat. With the 2 unique talents contributed by Old Manison, I should have enough for manufacturing and virtual technology. Han Xiao thought for a moment before choosing the 3rd option. Secondary direction has been determined. Please replace one of the following 3 bonus effects. 1. Long-range artillery strike. 2. Mechanical force strength bonus. 3. Machinery efficiency enhancement. When it comes to the 3rd choice, I have to choose one of the effects. This means that these 3 choices are the bonuses provided by the final form of the talent. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes, thought for a few seconds, and chose the 1st option. Among the 3 options, only the 1st option was slightly worse. Replacement complete. Long-range artillery strike. Randomly converted to main class attribute enhancement. All directions have been determined. Creating unique talent. Creation complete. You have received the new talent, Unnamed Han Shao. Unnamed, Han Shao, plus 10% INT. During battle, your mechanical force will receive a 2x bonus coefficient, and your machinery creation efficiency will receive a 3x bonus coefficient. The other percentage increases will be multiplicative with the bonus coefficients. Remarks. To be filled in. You have received your first unique talent. The difficulty of activating the next unique talent prototype will be increased. The initial level of the next unique talent will be increased. Bonus range will increase, and more directions can be accommodated. Chapter 13:12. It's a coefficient type bonus, huh? The range is quite impressive. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. The bonus from this talent had undoubtedly reached the level of a template. Not to mention the 10% increase in intelligence. With his current intelligence base, this was a few thousand attribute points. With the mechanical force and machinery efficiency bonuses working together, his machinery combat ability had increased by a large margin. He would probably be able to fight against high-level beyond grade, as with just one apostle weapon. From the interface's notification, the difficulty of awakening unique talents was getting higher and higher, but the effects were also stronger. Old Manison had both a single bonus talent like Virtual Technology Innovation and a wide-range bonus talent like Billion Mecha Empire. Clearly, the latter was the final product of Old Manison's many unique talents, but Han Shao had taken it away directly. Sigh, Old Manison, you've suffered too much. Han Shao sighed and laughed. Since the mechanism was getting stronger and stronger, he was not dissatisfied with his first unique talent. It was just that he did not know when the next unique talent would be. He also did not know if Old Manison had any other talents that could increase his awakening rate. Han Shao subconsciously licked his lips. His hands were itching. Thinking back, he had to admit that Old Manison's foundation was indeed very rich. It was a pity that they were now on the same side, so he did not dare to make a move. Otherwise, he would have really wanted to go and destroy Old Manison's database. After all, to a mechanic, the database of others was too tempting. Han Shao shook off this impulsive thought and looked at the interface again. The name and remarks of the talent were still waiting to be filled in. He could not help but feel a headache coming on. As someone who had trouble coming up with names, he had a high degree of confidence in his ability to come up with names. What should I call it? I have to give it a proper name this time. Otherwise, if the players use a character summon card to draw it, won't I be in trouble? Han Shao pondered for a while before carefully writing down a name that he felt was reliable. After confirming the name, the content of the talent on the interface refreshed. The blank box for filling in the content disappeared, and the name could no longer be changed. Emperor of War, Han Shao. Remarks, born for war. It's a fighting ability. This should be a normal name. Han Shao felt that there was no problem, but he wasn't too sure about his own aesthetics. However, since he had already decided on the name, he didn't feel too conflicted. He was about to turn around and leave the research institute to find a barren planet nearby to try his hand. But at this moment, his communicator suddenly beeped and a communication request came in. He took it out and saw that it was the reclusive lord of the kingdom of four gods, the old man whom he had once beaten up, the arcana sorcerer, Joey Taryn. The screen connected and Joey's figure appeared on the screen. What? You suddenly contacted me. Have you figured it out? Han Shao sounded interested. Joey's expression was somewhat helpless. He took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "We agree to join the Beyond Grade A Association, but we hope to retain our original freedom. Furthermore, the coordinates of the four god nations must be kept a secret, and the other members must not know about it. We will attend the regular meetings normally, and if there are any important matters, we will provide assistance, but we will not be forced. Is that okay?" Hearing this, Han Shao smiled. These 4B asterisk stars had finally made up their minds. This was probably their bottom line. Okay, this is a good start. With you joining, the strength of the association will be even stronger. I will not disclose your secondary dimension coordinates, and the association will not force the members, but I will announce that you are reclusive beyond grade as, and you'll need to be present when you join the association. Is that okay with you? Okay. Joey nodded and hesitated. Then about the sanctum revival, don't worry. Once you join the association, you'll be one of us. If you die, I will revive you. That's good. Okay. Send me all your information later. I will help you register the association's authority and arrange your entrance ceremony. After chatting for a while, Han Xiao hung up. 10 seconds later, he received the personal information of Joey and the other three. He then asked Philip to handle the entrance procedures. He thought for a while and called Oathkeeper. He had already discussed with some of the Holy Covenant members, and they would come out when the time was right. Since Joey and the others had joined, he might as well arrange a time for them to join the association together. Very soon, Oathkeeper appeared on the screen. Blackstar, what's the matter? Regarding the entrance ceremony of the new batch of Holy Covenant members, I have already made arrangements. They can come to the Flickering World now. Han Xiao instructed. I will inform them. Oathkeeper nodded, hesitated for a while, and suddenly said, Blackstar, I have something to inform you. The second set of Sanctum keys is about to be collected. So fast. Han Xiao was stunned. This matter was handled by Oathkeeper, and he did not pay much attention to it. He thought that the Holy Covenant would take at least a few years to collect the second set of keys. He did not expect the efficiency to be so high. Yes, in the list of resources provided by the Supercluster Alliance, there are many materials for the Sanctum keys. It is very difficult to buy them in the outside world, but these advanced civilizations have them in stock. There are also some more sensitive materials that the civilizations have prohibited from circulating on the market. Some black market warehouses actually have them in stock, and you have transferred them over, greatly speeding up our progress. Oathkeeper explained. I see. Han Xiao understood and heaved a sigh of relief. He felt that an invisible burden had been lifted. Only by obtaining the second set of Sanctum keys would he truly have the confidence to deal with the cleansing. He would no longer have to scare the three universal civilizations. Which Sanctum key are you about to collect? Han Xiao was curious. The first Sanctum this time. Han Xiao was immediately energized. The last time he entered the third Sanctum, it contained mostly knowledge of creatures, genes, Esper abilities, and so on. Although he gained something, it did not match his class well. The first Sanctum seemed to be closely related to mechanical technology. If he could go in, he would probably obtain the most suitable technology for mechanics. That would be the most profitable. Coincidentally, his authority in the first Sanctum was also very high, even higher than the third Sanctum. Currently, he had a total of 7 fragments, which was equivalent to 7 levels of authority. As long as he entered the first Sanctum, he would be able to obtain another fragment and reach level 8. By then, he would be able to do more things in the Sanctum. How? There's a collection of the other Sanctum keys. Let me show you. Oathkeeper sent a string of data. The Holy Covenant had digitized the search progress of the various Sanctum keys. At this time, other than the first Sanctum key with 92% progress, the second highest was the third Sanctum key with 67% progress. The search progress of the other Sanctum keys was around 40%. Only the sixth Sanctum was the most arrogant, with only 7% progress. Han Xiao looked at the progress, then looked at the list of materials for the various Sanctum keys. He encouraged, I'll try my best to pay attention to these materials. Keep up the good work. You do a good job too. The organization won't mistreat you. Oathkeeper said before Han Xiao could reply. He felt comfortable all over and hung up the communication without waiting for Han Xiao's reply. Han Xiao put down the communicator, scratched his head, and had a strange expression. Usually, it was him who spoke to Oathkeeper like this. He did not expect Oathkeeper to suddenly change to this tone, which caught him off guard. Interesting. Is he not satisfied with being ordered around all the time? So he wants to turn the tables and take advantage of me verbally? Humph, childish next time. I'll definitely speak faster than you. Han Xiao curled his lips and decided not to lower himself to Oathkeeper's level. After all, everyone knew who was the boss who made the decisions. The second set of keys is almost complete. I can consider finding an opportunity to have a showdown with the three universal civilizations. Han Shao calmed down and pondered. According to his judgment of the situation, one of the effective ways to resolve the stalemate between the three universal civilizations and the association was to seek peace through war. Let the three universal civilizations launch a cleanup, and the two sides would fight to their heart's content. When the association suffered heavy casualties, they would revive all the members and show the truth that there was no limit to the number of sanctum revivals. This way, while the three universal civilizations would learn a painful lesson, they would also know that they could not stop the beyond great as. There is a high chance that they would give up their current strategy, stop doing these useless things, and focus on studying the sanctums. This way, they would be able to achieve a new round of checks and balances, which should last for a long time. However, although this method would only cause limited damage to the beyond grade A association, it would deal a heavy blow to the three universal civilizations. After all, the fleets, armies, and soldiers that were destroyed could not be revived through the sanctum. If the direct descendants of the three universal civilizations died in this war, even if the sanctum revival could revive them, Han Shao would not let them revive in the same batch as the association members. It would definitely be delayed. He had two goals. One was to deal with the world tree, and the other was to protect the beyond grade as in not walk the same path as the Celestial Star Alliance. The former was a higher priority. Before the World Tree War breaks out, try not to cause too much damage to the military forces of the explored universe. Therefore, we still have to continue controlling the intensity. The association will not take the initiative to start a war and try to maintain the original state. The second sanctum revival is just a protective talisman. Only when the three universal civilizations take the initiative to start a cleanup will this plan be implemented. Han Shao exhaled. If he thought about it from another perspective, it was possible that they would not start a war. When that time came, in order to prevent damage to their forces, he might have to go against his original intention and reveal information about the World Tree civilization in advance, causing the war to break out earlier. However, whether the three universal civilizations would believe him or not was another matter. I hope the three universal civilizations don't play with fire. It's already good enough that they can maintain the current state. On the other side, somewhere in the desolate universe belt of the primeval star river, behind a gray planet, a spherical galactic fortress floated. It looked like an enlarged metal brain. This was a super-range virtual brainwave amplifier. On its surface, there was a matrix of intrusive quantum network base stations, which could hide the data packets sent out to a certain extent and increase the strength of the virtual intrusion. Around it were two circular mechanical devices, one horizontally and one vertically encircling the virtual brainwave amplifier like two star rings. This was the Radiant Federation's multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device. Outside the teleportation device, there were high-level concealment devices floating like buoys, providing multi-frequency shielding for this area, blocking all kinds of detection, including prophecy abilities. At this moment, Morniza and the doppelgangers of several beyond grade A mechanics were inside the virtual brainwave amplifier, sitting in their respective positions. They were all direct members of the three universal civilizations. After 2 to 3 months of preparation, the three universal civilizations finally agreed to this cooperation project. Those participating in this operation were all direct beyond grade A mechanics, led by Morniza and assisted by the three universal civilizations. They came to the primeval star river to invade Manison's database. The three universal civilizations took out a lot of cutting-edge equipment and even agreed to share the computing power of their main artificial intelligences to help with the invasion. This was all for the sake of successfully destroying Manison's database and catching him off guard. The virtual brainwave amplifier and intrusive quantum network base stations are operating at full power. The multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device is in the preheating stage. The Radiant Federation, Red Empire, and Arcane Church's main artificial intelligences have been allocated computing power. The invasion path has been calibrated, and the preparation is complete. Please give further instructions. The artificial intelligence's emotionless voice sounded in the room. Morniza glanced at her teammates, and a red light flashed in her mechanical doppelganger's eyes. She said firmly, "Don't worry. Everyone, let's do it." Chapter 13:13. In a certain secret base in the primeval Star River, in a spacious factory full of mechanical equipment, numerous mechanical arms were working day and night. Teams of mechanical assistants were as busy as workers in a workshop. Countless assembly lines were producing all kinds of mechanical products in a neat and smooth process. Madison sat cross-legged in the air of the factory with his eyes closed as he meditated. Golden electric arcs danced on the surface of his body like small snakes. His brain was working rapidly as he focused on training his computational ability. This was a compulsory class for most virtual mechanics every day. While he was swimming in the sea of data, a firewall alarm suddenly sounded from the connection between his consciousness and the quantum network. It reverberated in his mind. Alarm! Alarm! Abnormal data detected. It is currently infiltrating the database firewall. Madison opened his eyes abruptly, and his training state was interrupted. Someone infiltrated my database? Madison frowned, and Han Zhao's figure subconsciously appeared in his mind. The last time someone did this was many years ago. Could it be that *** star Black Star? Although they were on the same side now, Madison had never hesitated to speculate about Black Star with the greatest malice. Don't ask, it would be PTSD. His consciousness suddenly sank into the quantum network, and along the quantum network node, he instantly jumped to the location of the firewall. The next moment, his vision changed drastically, and he arrived at a virtual world built from data streams. In front of him was a thick firewall array that looked like layers of translucent shields. Countless jumping data bytes flowed on the surface. It was these things that protected his virtual artificial intelligence core in many databases, making them invisible in the quantum network, making it impossible for ordinary people to find the path and search. The enemies who could find the path to infiltrate were either beyond grade A mechanics or the main artificial intelligence of an advanced civilization or some large organization. In any case, they did not come with good intentions. At this moment, a large cluster of slightly glowing dark purple data was crawling on the surface of the firewall like a slime, continuously wriggling and corroding the firewall. Large patches of purple spread out. From a microscopic perspective, it could be seen that at the point of contact between the two parties, their respective basic data bytes were fighting fiercely. The basic bytes that were torn apart by the firewall were reorganized into the appearance of the other party's bytes and were assimilated and swallowed by this cluster of abnormal data, causing the computing scale of the abnormal data to slowly increase. Inside the firewall, streams of data surged out from the ground and condensed into the virtual appearance of Madison's soul. He narrowed his eyes and looked at this scene. He stretched out his hand and grabbed a stream of data. The two ends continued to extend, and the whole stream became thin and long, turning into the shape of a scepter. Madison held it in his hand. He tapped his scepter, and streams of data surged up from the ground. The texture was like mud, and they were quickly molded by an invisible force into a legion of fully armored AI guards, arrayed behind him. "You dare to invade my territory, but you don't have the guts to show yourself?" After finishing his battle preparations, Madison spoke expressionlessly. As soon as he said that, Morniza's virtual figure appeared outside the firewall. She looked at Madison, who was protected by the firewall, and said calmly, "You're not a member. We meet again. Teacher, so it's you." Madison narrowed his eyes. "What? You still haven't given up?" Morniza had once tried to steal his technology secretly. The reason was that she was close to him and had grasped some secret routes, so her ambition grew. However, Morniza's skill level was not high enough, so she did not succeed. She was discovered by him and taught a lesson. After that, Morniza joined the Radiant Federation, and this matter was left unsettled. Over the years, Madison had taught many mechanics, and Morniza was one of the most talented. After Morniza became a beyond grade A, he originally wanted to support her in establishing her own organization and forming an alliance with her to indirectly expand his own organization. Unfortunately, Morniza bit him back, and this plan fell through. Their relationship went from that of teacher and student to that of colleague. However, although the two of them did not have a good relationship, they did not become enemies immediately. On the contrary, the two of them had always maintained a certain level of intelligence cooperation. Morniza would occasionally reveal some unimportant insider information to Madison. From Madison's point of view, she was trying to get on his good side and keep him in check. He knew the student's personality quite well. Once she set her sights on a goal, she would not give up easily. She would definitely try everything she could and would not give up on stealing his technology so easily. Therefore, Madison was surprised by Morniza's sudden invasion today, but he felt that it was reasonable. Hearing this, Morniza sneered. "Teacher, things are different now. Black Star's rise has taken away the faith of the machinery faith. You're no longer the invincible mecha empire from decades ago." Hearing Black Star's name, Madison snorted in his mind, but did not refute this point. He calmly said, "Even so, it's still very easy for me to beat you up. I'm not so overconfident as to think that I have the ability to fight you alone." Morniza revealed a sarcastic smile. "But I have help this time." As soon as she said that, abnormal data streams suddenly appeared from a few other directions and smashed into the firewall. Large amounts of data were shattered, and the figures of a few other beyond grade A mechanics also appeared. With the support of part of the computing power of the three universal civilizations' main artificial intelligences, the speed at which they broke through the firewall was shockingly fast. The defense modules quickly disintegrated one after another, and the layers of the firewall were filled with holes. In an instant, he fell into the encirclement. Madison's expression changed slightly. These people were all direct members of the three universal civilizations. This time, it was clearly a three-way operation. Dealing with the invasion of several beyond grade A mechanics was already a little troublesome. And on top of this, the three universal civilizations even used part of the computing power of their own artificial intelligences to help. This was undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. The main artificial intelligences of the three universal civilizations were the most powerful artificial intelligences in the entire universe. After being improved and strengthened by generations of beyond grade A mechanics, they even fused with the memories, experience, and consciousness of these mechanics. They could be considered the most precious and strongest tool in the field of virtual technology. Without this foundation, the core database of the three universal civilizations would have been infiltrated long ago. It was just that most of the computing power of the main artificial intelligences had to be used to maintain the operations of the civilization, so it did not reveal much. However, if all of its computing power was concentrated, its power would be terrifying. Now that the three of them were invading with the help of a few direct beyond grade A mechanics, it would be difficult for him to fight against them alone. He was strong, but there was a limit. Furthermore, he had been beaten up badly by Black Star, and his ability was no longer at its peak. He felt helpless. "The three universal civilizations really think highly of me," Madison said with a deep voice. "You have to pay for what you've done. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being so reckless in the past and always trying to steal the secrets of the Radiant Federation. The Radiant has been tolerating you for a long time. Seeing that you used to be a staunch ally, we held back. This time, it's a late reckoning. I only suggested to the three universal civilizations and gave them a push. They want to get rid of the secrets in your hands and obtain the information you collected about the various civilizations in the primeval Star River. As for your technology, it's just a reward for me." Morniza's tone was playful, with a hint of schadenfreude. Madison snorted coldly. Knowing that it was useless to say anything more, he slammed his scepter. The next moment, the AI Guard army moved forward to stop the invasion. Finette also appeared with many artificial intelligences, joining the virtual attack and defense. At the same time, Rays made of data streams suddenly shot out of the firewall, evaporating large chunks of the invading data. The firewall array also began to change its position. Like a formation, the data traps hidden within were activated one after another, blocking the enemy's data streams. Due to the intelligent plague incident and the three universal civilizations becoming enemies, Manison had taken precautions and strengthened his firewall. He had even set up a large number of virtual technology methods to prevent today's situation. You're still the same. However, even if you made preparations in advance, can you stop them today? Morniza's eyes flashed. You'll only know after you try. Manison was unmoved. The invasion strength of the other party was beyond his expectations. He had already used all his means, and he had no idea if he could stop them. The data streams on both sides clashed. His computing power was operating at an extreme speed, constantly analyzing and breaking the other party's methods. The amount of information he received every second was astronomical. The flow of time in a virtual domain was different from normal time. It depended on the individual's thinking speed. With the thinking speed of the many beyond grade as present, every second seemed to be countless times faster here. Facing the powerful attacks of the three universal civilizations, Manison gradually found it difficult to deal with. The thickness of the firewall kept thinning, and holes appeared one after another. A portion of the low-level databases at the periphery lost their protection. The data probes of the three universal civilizations were inserted through these holes, shooting out streams of AI hunters and data streams, continuing to kill their way into the depths. The most confidential database was their main target this time. Although the situation was not good, Manison was still unmoved, not affected by his mood. He meticulously shrunk the defense line, steadily and accurately blocking the enemy and clearing the intruder's data. Morniza controlled the data streams to try to break through Manison's data blockade while harassing him with a mocking tone. Teacher, your ability has regressed a lot. Without the bonus of the machinery faith, you've fallen from the peak of your strength. You must feel bad, right? Why didn't you ask Black Star for help? Black Star should be very generous to help you. Someone who lost to him, right? I almost forgot. We've blocked all external communications. By the time you successfully sent out a request for help, we would have gotten it. Black Star has suppressed you so much that you can't breathe, taking away things that belong to you time and time again. I didn't expect you to be able to swallow your anger when he did this to you. If this was in the past, would you have let it go so easily? You're indeed getting older, and your courage is not as good as before. Don't tell me Black Star scared you out of your wits? The harassment of Shrimp Pig Heart came one after another, hitting Manison's heart where it hurt. However, his expression did not change, and his computing power was not affected. He calmly said, "Are you done?" Hearing this, Morniza suddenly felt a sense of danger. She felt as if a blood-red danger word had appeared above her head. Just as she was about to react, Manison's eyes glowed and locked onto her from afar. The next moment, a strange stream of data flowed out. Morniza's vision blurred, and her virtual soul was dragged into a silver data world filled with countless machines by an irresistible force. A silver giant stood before her. It was the enlarged version of Manison. Manison looked down, and his eyes were as indifferent as a god looking down at the mortals. He spoke calmly, and his voice echoed in this world. "Are you ready to get beaten up?" Morniza said with an expressionless face. "Since I dare to come after you, I was already mentally prepared. I can get your technology with just a little bit of injury. It's so worth it. Plus, this move of yours is just virtual paramount. How long can it trap me? Not long, but it's enough to beat you half to death." "Idiot!" Manison suddenly bent down, and his fist smashed down, turning Morniza's virtual soul into a pancake. With a boom, the world shook. Chapter 13-14. P.S. At the same time, I'd like to help Brother Moderator promote the event Super Godly Mechanics 7th Book Review Section event. The event will last from today until the 28th of June. The theme of this event is Han Technician. For the specific rules, you can see the related posts in the book review section. After this event, 15 brothers will be randomly selected to give out armor leather titles. Super Godly Mechanic, take a day off. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 13:15. Bang, bang, bang. Countless cannons fired at the same time, bombarding the figure in the middle. Manison's consciousness turned into a silver giant and ravaged Morniza's virtual soul. In the territory of virtual paramount, Morniza could not fight back at all. She was beaten dizzily by Manison's barrage of attacks, and the pain in her mind almost stopped working. Her virtual soul flickered like white noise, appearing very unstable. Ark! Morniza screamed in pain. Although she was mentally prepared to be beaten up by Manison, the pain of having her consciousness heavily damaged was still unbearable. She could feel the strong, killing intent in Manison's attacks. This pain reminded her of a lesson Manison gave her when she failed to steal his technology for the first time. Back then, Morniza had just become a Beyond Grade A, and she was extremely proud. She was not clear about the strength of a senior Beyond Grade A yet. After she failed to steal his technology, she was tortured by Manison. All her resistance was futile. She was as helpless as she was now, being tortured like a doll. At that time, Manison adjusted her understanding of reality, and the deep fear forced Morniza into the arms of the Radiant Federation. This humiliating memory had always been suppressed in her heart. At this moment, the shadow in her heart was reawakened. Morniza could almost feel her soul trembling instinctively. She gritted her teeth and endured the torture, praying that Manison would end it quickly. After who knew how long, Morniza, who was enduring bitterly, suddenly felt her mind lighten. She left the virtual paramount and returned to the battlefield of the virtual intrusion. Morniza's mind almost collapsed. Although the actual control time was very short, she felt like she had been tortured for more than 10 years. It was like countless blenders were operating in her brain, turning her brain into a mess. In order to continue the invasion, she had no choice but to continue operating her almost frozen mind. She had to stay awake, and the pain increased again. The moment she left the virtual paramount, due to the stiffness in her mind, her computing power plummeted, and the invasion of the area she was in charge of slowed down. Taking advantage of this short moment, Manison, who was prepared for this, suddenly released a huge amount of data, trying to break through the information blockade and send it to the outside world. At the edge of this virtual battlefield, layers of light screens suddenly lit up. The main artificial intelligences of the three universal civilizations formed a data blocking barrier, cutting off the data sent to the outside world. When this huge number of data Veda hit the blocking barrier, it was like a sky full of mosquitoes hitting a high-voltage grid. With a series of crackling sounds, they instantly exploded into nothingness. Cough, cough. You want to send a message while I'm injured? How will I let you succeed? I expected this. Morniza was still weak, but seeing this scene, she still laughed mockingly. Manison's face, virtual paramount's virtual paramount. While resisting the invasion, he tried to send messages to the outside world through the three universal civilizations' main artificial intelligences. With his virtual technology, it was basically impossible for the enemy to completely lock him down, but it would take some time for him to break through the blockade. Morniza endured the discomfort in her mind and intercepted a message sent to the outside world. The content was a request for help from the Beyond Grade A Association. Seeing this, even though she was injured, she could not help but laugh mockingly. The once mighty Mecha Empire has finally learned to ask for help? Huh? Where's your pride? Manison glanced at her, unmoved. He knew that after he sent out this request for help, it would most likely be Black Star, and he would probably be mocked. If possible, he did not want to have anything to do with Han Xiao, let alone let Han Xiao visit his database. After all, Virtual Purification Restore was his nemesis. However, in this situation, it was very difficult for him to hold on, so he could only put down his pride and ask for help. One side was resisting and asking for help, while the other side was invading and blocking. The situation was in a stalemate for quite some time. Madison kept mending the firewall, but the defense line continued to shrink. Morniza's group and the three universal civilizations' main artificial intelligences squeezed in crazily. More and more invasion probes pierced into the databases, copying and stealing the information he had accumulated over the years. During this time, Virtual Paramount's cooldown was also reset a few times. Madison used all of them on Morniza, chasing after her and beating her until she cried out in pain. Morniza could not recommend Madison to beat up her teammates, so she could only bear it herself. Her injuries worsened step by step. If not for her teammates' help, her consciousness would not have been able to continue invading. Suddenly, a wave of data finally broke through the firewall and pierced into the confidential database. It only lasted for an instant before it was killed by Madison. However, in such a short period of time, these highly computational probes had absorbed a large amount of nutrients and sent back a portion of confidential information. We've dug up important technical information. A mechanic sent a message to his teammate. Continue. Morniza's severely damaged consciousness suddenly became energized like she had been injected with chicken blood. This was like digging deep into a mine and finally finding a gem. Even if she was tortured, it was worth it. However, at this time, Madison, who had remained calm, finally found a gap in the barrier and sent out the request for help. *T. He found a gap and sent it out. Morniza's happiness only lasted for a few seconds. Her heart sank, and she could no longer be happy. Although she sounded arrogant, she was actually a little panicked. If the association's mechanics came to help, this operation would be ruined. This was especially true for the unfathomable Black Star. He was someone who had kicked her teacher, whom she used to respect, off the peak. Just thinking about it made her very wary. If Black Star came, Morniza would run away without saying anything. She dared to stab Madison in the back, but she did not dare touch Black Star's butt. "Don't panic, we still have some time," her teammate said with a deep voice. Morniza calmed herself down, clenched her teeth, and activated her computing power, trying to dig up as much technology as possible before the reinforcements arrived. At the same time, she removed most of the computing power that the three universal civilizations' main artificial intelligences used to block the news. Since Madison's request for help had already been sent out, there was no need to spend so much effort to block it. They might as well focus all their computing power on hacking. In their anxiety, they increased the speed of their hacking. Wave after wave of hacking probes were inserted into the various important databases. Madison frowned and could only try his best to resist. This lasted for a while. One of the direct mechanics calculated the time and suddenly said, "It's almost time. If we delay any longer, the reinforcements will really come. Retreat." Morniza clenched her teeth. They were far from digging out all of Madison's information, but she did not dare delay any longer. Looking at Madison's broken firewall with reluctance, they retracted their computing power and retreated along the path. At this time, Madison's virtual paramount finished turning. Before this group of intruders escaped, it dealt Morniza one last blow. Morniza was shocked. Her virtual soul became fainter, and she used the last bit of her consciousness to leave. In the virtual brainwave amplifier somewhere in the primeval Star River, their consciousnesses returned to their avatars. "Quick, let's go. My mind can't take it anymore." Morniza only managed to say one sentence before her avatar fell to the ground, and the Lord's descent state was automatically deactivated. She had been caught and beaten up by Madison, and she was already at the end of her rope. Now that she relaxed, she could not take it anymore. Her consciousness returned to her main body automatically, and she almost fainted. She would probably need at least a year to recover from this round of injuries. Judith glanced at her avatar that had lost control, shook his head, and said, "Don't worry about her. Take the data we stole and retreat first. The Mecha Empire might catch up at any time." Everyone nodded and immediately activated the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device. With a buzzing sound, the two star rings with the virtual brainwave amplifier started to rotate faster and faster, turning into a spherical phantom. The next moment, a light flashed, and the entire virtual brainwave amplifier was teleported away. The multidimensional sky opening transportation device immediately self-destructed and exploded. On the other side, in the virtual world, Madison silently looked at the battlefield that had been ravaged by the enemy. Calculate the data loss and give me a report. Understood. The main artificial intelligence responded and started to search the various databases. Very soon, a list was calculated. Madison looked at the tragic statistics, helplessly closed his eyes, and sighed in his heart. He had a self-deprecating expression on his face. How could one not wet one's shoes if one always walked by the river? Today, one was being pecked in the eye by the wild goose. It was indeed karma. About 70 to 80% of the information stored in the database had been stolen. This was the information that he had accumulated after many years of monitoring the various organizations. Many of them were confidential documents, especially those of the supercluster civilizations in the primeval Star River. Many of the technical blueprints that had been accumulated over many years had also been stolen. The only good news was that the core technologies of the felons and the indestructible Mecha Empire were all in his mind and not in the database. Otherwise, the losses would have been even greater. At this moment, a stream of data appeared out of nowhere and turned into the figure of a person. He looked down at the mess on the ground and clicked his tongue in wonder. Yo, this scene is really fresh. The Mecha Empire that once went around invading others had its database destroyed. Every dog has its day. Madison looked up. Who else could it be other than Black Star? He was not in the mood to care about Han Zhao's teasing. He said calmly, "You're late. I don't have telepathy, and I'm already fast enough. You should say that the enemy ran away in time." Han Zhao landed in front of Madison, looked around, stroked his chin, and asked curiously, "How many people did they send? How many people did they send to make you like this?" A few direct mechanics and the main artificial intelligences of the three universal civilizations. Madison gave a simple explanation. Whoa, then they really do value you quite a bit. Han Zhao raised his brows. In such a situation, even he did not have the confidence to withstand it. After all, the indestructible body was not very useful in the virtual technology level, so it was not surprising that Madison was heavily injured. Madison clicked his tongue. If I used force, I would have dealt with him by now. Although he was also good at fighting in the virtual technology level, his strength could not be compared to his overall strength. After all, virtual technology was an independent ability, and the Mech Legion was not very useful in the virtual technology level. Otherwise, with his wealth, he could have easily defeated these invaders in the real world. In the real world, he and Black Star could fight 10 enemies at once. But in the virtual world, no one could maintain such a shocking ratio. Han Zhao shook his head and asked, "What do you think? What do you want to do next? Swallow this or fight back?" Madison glanced at him and said concisely, "It's up to you." "Up to me?" Han Zhao was stunned. "Aren't you the president of the Beyond Grade A Association? I'm also a member of the association. I'll do whatever you say." "Who are you? Spit out the real Madison." Han Zhao was shocked. "What the hell? You've suffered such a huge loss, but instead of fighting back on your own initiative, you're respecting my opinion as the president? This is not like you, old Madison. It's over. Either this be Asterisk Star's soul has been swapped, or his personality has been distorted due to the huge blow." Looking at Han Zhao's incredulous expression, Madison only felt annoyed. "What's with that look? What's so strange about it? Anyway, I'll listen to your opinion on this matter." Of course, Madison was not happy about his database being invaded, but he was not too angry. He said that he had to take revenge. Firstly, the loss was not a big deal to him. The core technical information was all in his mind and had not been leaked. Secondly, the situation was sensitive now. He had to consider the big picture and did not want to disrupt the pace of the game between the association and the three universal civilizations. Although he had suffered a loss this time, it was the three universal civilizations working together after all, so the standard was high enough. Madison did not have much of temper. Furthermore, ever since his position in the machinery faith was taken away by Blackstar, his demand for reputation had become lower and lower. He felt that he had become more and more of a Buddhist, no longer clinging to the halo of the #1 mechanic in the galaxy. After all, it did not belong to him anymore. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. My temper is getting smaller and smaller. Manison sighed to himself. You've really changed. Han Xiao could not help but sigh. He then said with a straight face, Don't worry. The 3 universal civilizations have invaded the personal property of an association member. This matter will definitely not end here. What are you going to do? Condemn them first. Ask the 3 universal civilizations for an explanation and see what they have to say. They'll just accuse me of stealing the Radiant Federation's secrets and say that this is a reasonable settlement. Manison shook his head. Oh, this is indeed a good reason. Anyway, you're in the wrong, and they're in the right. This way, the problem will return to the association. The 3 universal civilizations are testing you at this juncture. Han Xiao pondered and said, The 3 universal civilizations settlement is just a settlement. The so-called cleansing of the 3 universal civilizations is probably just a side benefit. On one hand, they're testing whether the association will take any further actions to counter you, to see what we're capable of. If we only condemn them but do not take action, it'll be a sign of weakness, and the degree to which we take action will reflect how confident we are. On the other hand, they'll continue to attack the association. They're in the right. If the association stands up for you, it'll seem overbearing and highlight their righteousness. If they don't stand up for you, the association members will feel uneasy and resentful, which is not good for unity. Hearing this, Manison nodded in agreement. The 3 universal civilizations made a move on the association's core members during this sensitive period, so their intentions were obvious. However, the association had no choice but to take action. However, at this moment, Han Xiao changed the topic. However, the premise of this analysis is that we don't consider a huge variable. If this variable appears, the 3 universal civilizations' reaction will not be what I just described. What variable? Manison frowned. Han Xiao glanced at him and said, I'll ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, and you have to answer me truthfully. Is the virtual mutiny virus technology that you secretly created in the lost data? Manison was not mentally prepared and was stunned. Then his expression changed, and he stared at Han Xiao in confusion. When the F***CK, did you know my secret? Thank you for the short and powerless leather armor, the 10,000 reward that everyone knows. End of chapter. Chapter 13:16. What are you talking about? Manison glared at Han Xiao. His biggest secret trump card was suddenly exposed, and his heart was in turmoil. He had never told anyone about the secret of developing the virtual mutiny virus. How did Blackstar know about it? Could it be a prophecy? But that doesn't make sense. I set up an information form concealment device every time I do research. Outsiders can't even predict where my main body is, let alone discover that I'm researching this technology. Could it be that he's tricking me? At this moment, Han Xiao slowly added, Don't pretend. Since I've pointed this out, I naturally have actual information. As the president, I have to know enough about the important members. The secret you think is not a secret in my eyes, and I also know that you've already achieved results in your research. This matter is related to the evolution of the situation, so you must tell the truth. It's very important. Manison looked at Han Xiao's determined expression, and a chill ran down his spine. For a moment, he was a little distracted, and a long-lost fear appeared in his heart. He felt as if all his secrets were exposed in Han Xiao's eyes. When he was invaded just now, no matter how dangerous the situation was, he did not have much emotional fluctuation. However, he had only said a few words to Han Xiao, and his calm aura was instantly broken, and his heart was shaken. Blackstar, this bastard, is really my nemesis. Manison secretly gritted his teeth. He was in a dilemma. He wanted to keep it a secret, but his mood was uncertain for a long time. In the end, he decided to be frank and talk about it. Then, he slowly opened his mouth. Since you know, why haven't you interfered with my research? It's not like I can stop you from doing research. Besides, I have something better. Han Xiao secretly grinned. The virtual mutiny virus that Manison created himself was only a half-finished product. Back then, when he completed the Intelligent Plague mission with an S-rank evaluation, he obtained the original Domino virus. Although it was incomplete, the technical integrity was completely incomparable to the imitation made by Manison. But there was no need to tell old Manison about this. Han Xiao coughed softly and said, "It's just because there's no need to." Hearing this, Manison immediately filled in the gaps, and his eyes immediately narrowed. I get it now. Actually, you also wanted this insurance back then, but you were worried about inheriting the position of president, so you deliberately sat back and watched me do this kind of tiring work. You don't reject the fact that we have this technology, but it doesn't fall on your face. You can think whatever you want. The corner of Han Zhao's mouth twitched slightly. To be honest, he quite liked chatting with people who were good at imagining things. He didn't even need to think of a reason, as the other party would think of one for him. It was really easy. We are indeed jackals of the same tribe. Manison coldly snorted. Han Xiao simply went along with his imagination and said with a straight face, "But I still don't agree with your original path. This hasn't changed." Manison subconsciously wanted to refute, but thinking about the sanctum revival brought by Han Xiao, the effect was indeed much better than he had expected, so he could only shut his mouth. Seeing this, Han Xiao paused and continued with a deep voice. The virtual mutiny virus is a great weapon against the Galactic Society. It's enough to destroy the existing order and plunge the entire explored universe into chaos. Back then, I personally crushed the virus core. In the eyes of the world, this dangerous technology disappeared forever, and they were relieved. However, if the three universal civilizations find out that this technology has appeared again, the situation will be different. I think the three universal civilizations will be even more afraid. Manison did not think much of it. You still want to walk down this path to the end. It's very difficult to turn back. Han Xiao was helpless. Although the current confrontation between the Association and the three universal civilizations was only a deterrence in terms of armed forces, once the virtual mutiny virus appeared, it would be seen as a threat to the entire galactic society. Even if the Association did not intend to release the virus, the nature of the situation would change. After all, the power of the virtual mutiny virus was too terrifying. It could destroy the order of the galactic society and turn it into a universe-level disaster. When this technology was controlled by an individual and turned into a programmable virus weapon, the threat level would increase exponentially. They could develop countless generations of the virus in the laboratory and release it directly, crushing the average level of artificial intelligence technology of the Galactic Society. Without even thinking about it, the three universal civilizations would definitely not allow outsiders to control this weapon. It was equivalent to handing over the life and death of the Galactic Society to others. Furthermore, this situation would also implicate Han Xiao himself. The outside world would think that he had destroyed the virus, but now that they found out that the virus was created by Manison, even if it did not have much to do with Han Xiao, conspiracy theories would still be popular. The outside world would think that Han Xiao was just putting on a show and pretending to destroy the virus core. In fact, he had secretly reached an agreement with Manison. This way, their image would be reversed, and they would really become the public enemy of the universe. Even the Association would be affected, as the suppressed party resisting the domineering three universal civilizations was called resisting, and they would receive a lot of support. However, by threatening the Galactic Society to force the three universal civilizations to submit, the nature of the situation would change, and the number of people supporting the Association would plummet. There was no turning back in the first place, Manison slowly said. You're always thinking about deterrence and checks and balances. When will it end? If we don't completely dispel the ambitions of the three universal civilizations, they will never give up on controlling the scale of individual strength. It's difficult to maintain the balance without strategic deterrence. Isn't it good to let the three universal civilizations know that we have the ability to quickly destroy the Galactic Society? Han Xiao rubbed his temples and said, "The Galactic Society is very important, but when their ruling position is strongly threatened, the three universal civilizations are willing to eliminate the enemy at all costs. Although it's not easy to establish the Galactic Society, at least it can be rebuilt. If they lose their ruling position, the three universal civilizations would rather destroy everything and restart the war. Although the three universal civilizations are cowering and afraid now, once they break through the limit, they will have the courage to destroy and rebuild. They will not be threatened, and this is not what we want to see." After being in the galaxy for so many years, he had already understood that the productivity of the galactic era was extremely shocking. When the social production chain did not need too many people to participate, to some advanced civilizations, the population was just a renewable resource that was not too precious. They only valued the various functions that the people played, not the people themselves. Most of the time, the higher and stronger the civilization, the less they needed to care about the wishes of the people because they could no longer cause any trouble. The three universal civilizations and the supercluster civilizations had actually reached this level, but they did not do so. On one hand, it was because of their inherent culture and system, and on the other hand, it was to make the society operate in a virtuous cycle. In fact, this was not their weakness. Therefore, Han Xiao did not doubt that the three universal civilizations would flip the table if they were forced into a corner. To them, dead people were nothing. It was just that they were unwilling, not that they could not. If it was in the past, you might be right, but now that you've brought the guarantee of the Sanctum revival to the Association, coupled with the deterrence of the virtual mutiny virus, I don't think the three universal civilizations will have the courage to do so. Anyway, I'm hiding this technology for the Association. Since you're the president now, you can deal with it." Manison was non-committal as he said faintly. He said, "The principle of this technology is in my mind. Those intruders won't be able to steal it, but they did steal some related experiment records and logs. Although there's no direct technical description in them, I don't know if they'll be able to associate it with the virtual mutiny virus through the experiment. Tell me honestly, did you do it on purpose? It's already happened. Is it important whether I did it on purpose or not?" Manison's tone was calm. "Hiding this trump card is more for the sake of a life and death struggle. Since the Association wants to keep us in check, it's much better for the other party to know that we have this trump card from the intelligence. At least, everyone will have room to maneuver. You're really something. I thought you really respected me as the president." Han Xiao looked at him deeply, turned around, and left. Manison watched Han Xiao's figure disappear from his sight. His lips seemed to move, but he quickly stopped and turned back to focus on repairing the firewall. Black Star Palace, Army Commander's office. As his consciousness returned, Han Xiao slowly opened his eyes. A gleam flashed across his eyes. The Mecha Empire really is a Astra's start. Regardless of whether the three universal civilizations stole it themselves or Manison deliberately leaked it, there was a high chance that the existence of the virtual mutiny virus would be known by the three universal civilizations. This way, the Association would have no choice but to deal with it. Although the second set of Sanctum keys had been gathered, and he also had plans to fight, he wanted to delay this step as much as possible. He originally thought that the balance would last for a long time, but this sudden incident disrupted the pace and probably greatly accelerated the process. I'm afraid I'm blessed. I was just praying that the three universal civilizations wouldn't play with fire, and here it is. Han Zhao's eyes flickered. No matter what, the variable had already happened. He could only prepare in advance. In the three universal civilizations' joint conference room. Morniza succeeded. Not bad, not bad. Seeing the report, Lewis nodded with satisfaction. There's nothing to be happy about. It would be strange if our main artificial intelligences couldn't deal with a mere mecha empire, the ethereal Pope said coldly. That's true. Lewis glanced at the remote projections of the beyond grade A mechanics in front of him and asked, "Where's Morniza? Why isn't she here?" She was heavily injured by the mecha empire, and is recuperating. She doesn't have the energy to deal with other things for now. Defender, Romo said with a deep voice. Send her my regards. Lewis waved his hand and did not mind. Let's not worry about her for now. How's the harvest this time? All the data has been sent to the Academy of Science. They're piecing the information together and reorganizing it. There should be a result soon, Romo replied. The order of the information fragments that they stole from Madison's database was all messed up. After all, it was a violent invasion, and a considerable portion of the information was incomplete. They had to sort out the order like a jigsaw puzzle and sort out the different files before they could know what they had gained. Lewis nodded. Just as he was about to speak, an emergency report popped up on the virtual screen on the table. It was from the Federation's Supreme Academy of Science. There's a response? So soon? Lewis raised his brows. He looked at the report, and his expression suddenly changed. The report was the incomplete experiment records of Madison's virtual mutiny virus. The Academy of Science was still piecing together the follow-up information, but just from the results of the experiment records, Madison had already achieved some results. Bruce and the ethereal Pope saw that his expression was not right. They both turned around with confusion. What did you see? You guys take a look too. Lewis's veins bulged as he sent the report to the two of them. The two of them glanced at each other, and their expressions changed at the same time. Their faces sank in an instant, and anger faintly emerged on their faces. The eyes of Romo and the other direct beyond grade as moved, and they became curious. What kind of information did the Academy of Science come up with from the data they stole to make the expressions of the three leaders change so drastically at the same time? This time, Lewis closed his eyes and calmed himself down. He glanced at the curious mechanics, waved his hand, and turned off the remote projection, leaving only the three leaders in the room. Seeing that all the outsiders had left, Bruce coldly said with a dark expression, "Great, the Mechanic Emperor is indeed unwilling to give up. He's still researching the virtual mutiny virus and has actually made some progress. I wonder if Black Star was just putting on a show for us when he crushed the virus core. If not for this intrusion into the Mecha Empire's database, who knows how long we would have been kept in the dark." The ethereal Pope could not suppress his anger. Lewis glanced at the two of them and slowly said, "The situation has changed. We have to prepare for the worst. The two of you start the war mobilization. Thank you for the short and powerless leather armor, the well-known 10,000 reward. The Prince is Fierce by Guan Guan Gong's the introduction. The world is like a game of chess, and people are like chess pieces. The world is filled with intrigue. The world is filled with love and hate, and the world is filled with joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. They are nothing more than chess pieces intertwined on a chessboard, emitting sparks of light." End of chapter. Chapter 13-17. Planet Finn, Beyond Grade A Association Headquarters. The few people I'm introducing are the new members of the association this time. Everyone will be on the same side from now on. In the venue, Han Xiao introduced this batch of rookies to everyone with a smile on his face. They were Joey and the other reclusive people, as well as the new batch of Holy Covenant members. After Madison's vault was destroyed by the three universal civilizations, he quickly arranged for the time for them to join the association. Today was the day of the welcoming meeting. Hearing Han Xiao's introduction, the Beyond Grade as present sized up this batch of rookies. They nodded slightly with surprise in their eyes. Although everyone already knew about the existence of the Sanctum Revival, they were still amazed when they saw this batch of revivers again. Furthermore, not only were there revivers this time, Black Star had also attracted a few unfamiliar reclusive people to join the association, strengthening the association's reputation. In their eyes, this was undoubtedly Black Star's counterattack against the three universal civilizations ban. Everyone could not help but feel excited. At the same time, this basically proved that Black Star could use the Sanctum Revival more than once. This was what most people were concerned about and secretly rejoiced. "Since you've joined the association, you're all family. Please take a seat," Kasui said with a smile. Joey and the others sighed and helplessly went to their seats. Although they had some social phobia, they still braced themselves to socialize with the other beyond grade, as in get to know each other. As for the members of the Holy Covenant, they looked at each other and did not reveal anything. They chatted as if they were meeting for the first time. Everyone chatted with the rookies for a while, and the atmosphere was harmonious like a big family. Han Xiao waited for a while, and seeing that everyone had gotten to know each other, he smiled and said, "All right, everyone had gotten to know each other. Actually, other than welcoming the new members, there's another matter that needs to be dealt with today." Hearing this, the room fell silent. Everyone turned their heads and focused their eyes on Han Xiao, waiting for the president to continue. Seeing this, Han Xiao stopped smiling and slowly said, "Don't worry. Not long ago, the three universal civilizations worked together to hack into the Mecha Empire's database and succeeded. This matter is both a test and a provocation from the three universal civilizations. Therefore, today, I would like to hear everyone's suggestions on how we should respond." Everyone subconsciously looked at Madison, only to see Madison with his eyes slightly closed, looking calm and composed. "I know about this. I also received a request for help at that time." Kant pondered and said, "Madison is a member of the association. It is reasonable for us to seek justice for him." That's right. Although Madison has poor taste, is despicable, narrow-minded, old, ugly, and shameless, he's still one of us. The association can't pretend that nothing happened when he was attacked by the three universal civilizations for no reason, Sun Hunter said. "I agree." Secret Master nodded. Sun Hunter turned his head and glanced at him. "What do you agree with?" "The association should stand up for the old and ugly." "I agree with both." Secret Master's eyes twitched. He felt a trace of his luck inexplicably slip away. Madison snorted, opened his eyes, and interrupted, "Just say what you want to say. Don't attack someone personally." "No way. Even telling the truth is against the law." Sun Hunter sounded surprised. Madison took a deep breath and calmed himself down. "Don't be angry, don't be angry. No one will take my place if I get sick from anger." Han Xiao looked at Sun Hunter approvingly and asked for their opinions. Almost 90% of them agreed with the association standing up for Madison. It was not because they had a good relationship with old Madison, but because they hoped that they would be treated the same way in the future. Since most of you have the same opinion, the association will condemn the three universal civilizations and ask them to give a response. At the same time, please mobilize your armed forces on a large scale and listen to the association's orders. When necessary, we may take military action against the three universal civilizations. Hearing this, everyone was stunned for a moment. They thought that a condemnation would be enough. At most, it would be a group of mechanics looking for trouble with the vassal organizations of the three universal civilizations. Why did Black Star's tone sound like he was going to start a war directly? However, their surprise only lasted for a few seconds before they calmed down and did not object. With the protection of the Sanctum Revival, most of them were quite confident. It was not impossible for them to fight. Furthermore, most of them felt that the military action Black Star mentioned was probably just a demonstration. After all, the current situation was barely balanced, and it did not look like a war was going to break out. Also, in order to prevent similar incidents from happening again, I suggest that everyone gather their main bodies in the flickering world. Don't give the three universal civilizations a chance to attack us one by one. Of course, this is not forced. If some people really don't want to come, they don't have to, but they have to bear the consequences. As he spoke, Han Xiao glanced at Madison and slowly said. Madison closed his eyes again and pretended not to hear. He would not let his well-hidden main body appear in front of others. Most of them did not have any objections to this. Many of them have been staying in the flickering world recently to manage their organizations here, so they did not have to rush. As for some of the beyond grade, as with large businesses in other star fields, it was not a problem for them to stay here for the time being. After a lively discussion and confirming the following arrangements, everyone logged off and adjourned the meeting one after another. Very soon, only Han Xiao, Kasui, and Ames were left in the venue. You're still not going offline? I have some private matters to discuss with old Ko. Han Xiao glanced at Ames and said, "Don't worry." Ames shook her head, sighed, and said, "Aesop asked me to tell you that he saw a confrontation that attracted the attention of the entire universe. The two sides are the association and the three universal civilizations. The scene of the future he saw came to an abrupt end. He only knows that the final result will change the fate of the universe. He wants you to handle it carefully." Did the old man make another prophecy? Han Xiao narrowed his eyes, nodded, and said, "Got it. Wait for me at home. After the meeting, I'll use the king to pick you up." Ames smiled and went offline. Now, only the two of them were left in the room. Kasuyi listened to the conversation just now, frowned, and whispered, "Black Star, are we going to fight the three universal civilizations?" "Very likely." Han Xiao casually told him about the virtual mutiny virus. Kasui's expression changed, and he did not know what to say. After a long while, he sighed and said, "The Mechanic Emperor is still too stubborn, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's your fault for not letting him know that there's no limit to the Sanctum Revival. If not for the virtual mutiny virus, your plan could have been steadily realized. This extra layer of fear added to the chaos and made things different. Even if he knows the truth, he'll most likely think that the Sanctum Revival and the virtual mutiny virus are a perfect match." Han Xiao curled his lips. "Let's not talk about him. Anyway, be prepared. Let your Void Lords monitor the movements of the various dimensional armies of the three universal civilizations in the secondary dimensions. If they send troops to deal with us, they definitely won't hold back." "Understood." Kasui nodded and went offline. The confrontation between the Beyond Grade A Association and the three universal civilizations had been going on for quite some time, and the Galactic Society had gradually gotten used to this tense atmosphere. However, on this day, the Beyond Grade A Association publicly condemned the three universal civilizations for invading their member, Manison, and demanded an explanation. The Radiant Federation of the three universal civilizations was not to be outdone, claiming that Manison had stolen their secrets many times. This was a late reckoning, a punishment that should have happened long ago. The galactic residents were already used to such conflicts, and they thought that it would be another day where the two sides would happily argue. However, the changes that followed made many people smell that something was wrong. According to the previous practice, the association and the three universal civilizations would condemn each other back and forth, and the matter would soon be over. Even if there was any punishment, it would only be a blow to the development of an organization like a band. However, this time, the galactic residents and the various organizations were shocked to find that both sides seemed to want to play for real. After the announcement was made, the three universal civilizations and the Beyond Grade A Association actually mobilized their forces on a large scale at the same time. The fleets of the three universal civilizations sailed out of the central galaxy and were stationed in the various star fields, while the people of the Beyond Grade A organizations were mainly gathered in the flickering world. At this time, even the slow-witted ordinary people realized that something was wrong. Although the association and the three universal civilizations did not continue to make a statement after that, it was clear that they were about to start a fight. Since the two sides had been opposing each other, most of the galactic residents had only been watching the show. At this time, they all became nervous. The public opinion on the internet that hoped that the three universal civilizations would clear out the Beyond Grade, as was mostly just for show. However, when this scene seemed to be about to happen, many people panicked, afraid that a war of this scale would affect them. For a time, the atmosphere of the entire galactic society became jittery. Countless eyes stared at the movements of both sides, as if they could see a storm brewing quickly. Strange, why are the three universal civilizations suddenly not afraid? In a meeting room of the Supercluster Alliance, the leaders were all surprised. According to their analysis, the three universal civilizations should not start a war so easily due to the fear of various parties, and it was the same for the association. So why did both sides suddenly become so reckless? The invasion of Manison was the trigger, but the leaders of the Supercluster Alliance did not think it was necessary. It was only a copy of the database that was stolen, and he was not beaten or killed. Was there a need to make such a big fuss? Could it be that the three universal civilizations have changed their minds and want to cut the Gordian knot without caring about their losses? Someone asked suspiciously. That's unlikely. Don't forget that we're still here. If the three universal civilizations and the association both suffer heavy losses, won't that give us a chance to rise up? The Star Arc civilization leader said hesitantly. It was because of their existence that the previous weak balance was maintained. If not for the Supercluster Alliance benefiting from it, the two sides might have attacked long ago. What should we do? Just wait and see. If they really want to fight, it's a good thing for us. The Star Arc civilization leader rolled his eyes. However, we have to be careful of the three universal civilizations taking the opportunity to drag us into it. It's not the first time they've done something like this. It's best if we arrange a large number of troops at the border. We don't need to interfere in their battle and just protect the safety of the territory. The leaders of the Supercluster Alliance discussed softly with excitement in their voices. Although they did not know why the three universal civilizations and the association suddenly became reckless, it was not bad news for them. Time passed quickly in the atmosphere of storm. Under the nervous attention of the Galactic Society, the movements of the two sides became more frequent and obvious. They did not hide at all and kept placing their pieces like chess. However, they never touched each other, and there was no friction. It was as if they did not exist. Both sides still hadn't made any new announcements, causing all kinds of rumors to spread wildly, and public opinion was spreading panic everywhere. The population flow of the various star fields also had a chain reaction. The galactic residents who stayed in the flickering world left en masse, causing congestion in the stargates. The number of people who went to the central galaxy and some of the border star fields to seek refuge also increased. Under the eyes of the world, a super-large joint fleet of the three universal civilizations entered the primeval Star River and headed straight for the mechanical race's territory. At the same time, the three universal civilizations finally issued a new statement. Through the analysis of the Mecha Empire's database by the Academy of Science, we have obtained conclusive evidence that the Mecha Empire has been secretly developing the virtual mutiny virus, trying to replicate the source of this universal disaster. Currently, they have obtained relevant results and are trying to bring disaster to the galaxy. Here, the Radiant Federation, the Red Empire, and the Arcane Church represent the Galactic Society to issue a joint ultimatum to the Mecha Empire. Immediately hand over the virtual mutiny virus technology and destroy all backups under our supervision. We will protect the safety of the Galactic Society at all costs. On the day the statement was released, the haze of the intelligent plague once again shrouded the Galactic Society and the hearts of countless galactic residents. Panic swept through one star system after another at an unbelievable speed. The virtual mutiny virus still existed in the world. It was not easy to eradicate this scourge virus that threatened the entire universe, but someone created it again for their own selfish reasons. The Galactic Society was in an uproar. Along with shock and fear came fury from the bottom of their hearts. The Mecha Empire, damn it! Chapter 13:18. The three universal civilizations really did that. It seems like they've made up their minds. In the reception room of the Black Star Palace, more than 10 beyond grade as were gathered there. They all turned to look at the virtual screen on the wall of the room, which was broadcasting news about the three universal civilizations declaration. Everyone's expression was uncertain. Only Han Shao held his chin with one hand, his face expressionless. Bang! The table was suddenly slammed. Everyone turned around and saw Kant with a gloomy expression, his fist embedded in the cracked table. The Mecha Empire wants to see the world burn, forcing us to waste a chance of a sanctum revival. Everyone present had unfriendly expressions. Recently, there had been frequent military movements between the two sides. They were all core members of the association invited by Han Shao and gathered in the Black Star Palace. At first, Everyone thought that this was another trick of the three universal civilizations. But when Han Xiao briefly explained to them how Manison's database was breached, they were shocked. On one hand, they were surprised that Manison had really developed the virtual mutiny virus, and on the other hand, they were angry that Manison had leaked the experiment records and deliberately caused this situation. With the Sanctum Revival as their foundation, they were not afraid of fighting, but the mentality of being willing and forced was different. Originally, when the three universal civilizations invaded Manison's database, it was normal for the association to stand up for him. However, when the virtual mutiny virus appeared, the situation changed. The association became the one in the wrong, and Manison most likely did it on purpose to drag them down. Everyone had a lot of opinions about old Manison. After all, there was only one chance to revive, and no one wanted to use it too early. Blackstar, what do we say this time? The three universal civilizations have exposed this matter. Is the association still going to stand up for Manison? Kasui turned around. He did not have much of a reaction. Han Xiao had already told him about it. Han Xiao stroked his chin and said in a low voice, "In my plan, the three universal civilizations have been exposed. In my imagination, the three universal civilizations have learned of the existence of the virtual mutiny virus. There are several possible paths they could take, and what they're doing now fits one of them. Inform the Galactic Society, send an army to surround the mechanical race's territory, and threaten Manison to hand over the technology. If the association protects the Mecha Empire and the virus technology, as long as the three universal civilizations push the public's opinion, the neutral image and reputation that the association has built will instantly plummet. At the same time, it's very likely that an all-out war will break out. The three universal civilizations should be mentally prepared for war. Then, how about we give up on Manison? The situation now is different from before. I believe most of the members can understand. After all, we really don't know anything about the virtual mutiny virus. The Mecha Empire broke the taboo, and it has nothing to do with us, someone said. Han Xiao shook his head. The three universal civilizations have been trying to kill the association for a long time, and public opinion has long been established. They've stirred up the fantasies and fanaticism of the supers toward us. At this point, if we just give in like this, even if we have a legitimate reason, it'll still mean that we've lowered our head to the three universal civilizations. We'll probably lose our special guiding position among the supers, and it'll be very difficult to make up for it afterward. To the three universal civilizations, dispelling the yearning and fantasies of the supers toward the association is also a valuable result. You're not really going to make the association take the blame for Manison, are you? Why don't we insist that this is the three universal civilizations' fault? Or we can say that the three universal civilizations started first and Manison only stole. Sun Hunter's eyes widened. Han Xiao interrupted him, waved his hand, and said, "They have a lot of evidence in their hands, and we're in a passive position. It'll be very difficult to make a false accusation, and it might even make the situation worse. Also, don't forget, in the eyes of many, there are some things that civilizations can touch, but not civil organizations. Even if we say that the three universal civilizations developed it first, they don't need to explain too much. Plus, they can totally say that if the Mecha Empire didn't have ulterior motives, why would they steal this technology? It's too easy to find such reasons." As he said that, he paused for a while before continuing. "The Mecha Empire gave us something to use against us, which is a dilemma for us. At this point, this matter has already gone beyond the level of words. Public opinion is just an addition. Either they give in, or we give in. Playing tricks won't be able to avoid the core of the problem. It all depends on whether we protect Manison or not, or whether we hand over the technology. I'll put it this way. We'll definitely protect him, but we won't hand over the technology. At most, we'll just have to beat around the bush." Everyone exchanged glances. "Then, what do you need us to do now?" "I've already spoken to Manison. Your troops in the primeval Star River will head to the mechanical race's territory and form a defensive perimeter, blocking the three universal civilizations' joint fleet midway. As for you guys, stay here and recuperate. I'll use the king to rush to the primeval Star River. If a fight breaks out, I'll pull you guys over to help." Han Shao shook his head. Hearing this, everyone had nothing else to say. They left the room with heavy thoughts. They still needed some time to digest the sudden change in situation. Han Shao leaned back in his chair, took out his communicator, and went online to take a look. The internet was currently in an uproar, snatching away all the attention. The terror of the virtual mutiny virus was deeply rooted in people's hearts, and the entire galactic society was in a state of panic. Almost everyone was cursing Manison for his wild ambition, saying that his actions had once again brought a threat to the universe. After the intelligent plague incident, Manison's reputation had always been very bad. His original intention of developing this technology was to weaponize it, and almost all the galactic residents were terrified and angry. Even Han Shao himself was suspected of a conspiracy. His actions of destroying the virus Korvac then were questioned by countless people. Many people believed that if Black Star's thoughts were the same as before, he would have stood up to destroy or hand over the virus technology again. Otherwise, what he did back then might have been an act. He might have destroyed the technology on the surface to avoid the attention of the three universal civilizations while secretly working with Manison. Now, what was done could not be undone. Tisk, Han Shao curled his lips and did not say anything. He closed the internet interface and gave Manison a call. Very soon, Manison's figure appeared on the screen. "Black Star, when are you leaving?" Manison went straight to the point. "Wait a while." Han Shao paused for a moment before saying expressionlessly, "Are you really not going to relocate the mechanical race?" "No, let them surround us." Manison did not care. "Then wait for me to come over." Han Shao could not be bothered to talk to Manison anymore. He hung up the call, got up, and left the room. In the next few days, the explored universe changed drastically. The joint fleet of the three universal civilizations headed toward the mechanical race's territory without hiding anything. The various forces that the association had left in the primeval Star River also began to gather there. Fleets from the beyond Grade A organizations were on standby within half a day's distance from the mechanical race's territory. They sealed off the path to the mechanical race's territory, and no one was allowed to pass. They did not hide their intention. They formed a defensive circle to block the path of the joint fleet of the three universal civilizations. At the same time, the association also made an announcement to the Galactic Society regarding the three universal civilizations announcement. The association did not know about the Mecha Empire developing the virtual mutiny virus and is currently investigating. As everyone knows, the association was created to mediate the conflicts between beyond grade as and restrict their actions. If it is confirmed that the Mecha Empire has indeed developed the virtual mutiny virus technology, the association will definitely take measures to ensure that this technology will not harm the order of the Galactic Society. However, the association will not interfere with an individual's freedom of research, nor do we agree that any dangerous technology must be kept by the three universal civilizations. If the situation is true, the association will restrict Manison and ask him to seal this technology to ensure the safety of the Galactic Society. Furthermore, the association strongly opposes the military actions that the three universal civilizations are currently taking against Manison's people. This is an underhanded threat. We hope that the three universal civilizations will withdraw their troops immediately and not intensify the conflict. After the association completes the investigation, we will give the Galactic Society an answer. There is no need for the three universal civilizations to interfere. As soon as this announcement was made, it once again caused an uproar in the Galactic Society. Many people thought that the association would give in no matter what this time, but they did not expect them to be so stubborn. Although the Beyond Grade A Association said that they were still investigating, their attitude of not giving in was already clear. They made it clear that this was their own matter, and they would not hand over the technology. They would not allow the three universal civilizations to interfere. Furthermore, they had a point. If the three universal civilizations could regulate it, so could the association. The galactic residents trusted the three universal civilizations even more. However, since the association claimed that it would not harm the galactic society, even if many people doubted it, as a bystander who did not know the truth, they could not accuse the association of harboring evil intentions and planning to use this technology to do evil. After all, the Beyond Grade A Association was not an ordinary civilian organization. It had a certain level of credibility. At the same time, the outside world could not be sure if Manison's personal research was ordered by the association. Therefore, at least the association's reason for rejecting the three universal civilizations was somewhat justified. As for whether they could really regulate it, it did not matter now. The Supercluster Alliance, who was originally watching, jumped out again when they saw the opportunity and supported the association's decision. They expressed that there was no reason for them to hand over the technology to the three universal civilizations. This was just an excuse to steal other people's technology, and the three universal civilizations or try to steal other people's technology. It was not strange for them to do this. The Supercluster Alliance was probably the party that was most unwilling to see the three universal civilizations master the virtual mutiny virus technology. If not for the fact that they felt that it was inappropriate, they would have recommended themselves to supervise this technology as a third party. Countless galactic residents felt that the situation in the world had changed too quickly. Not long ago, it was still a peaceful day, but in the blink of an eye, a war seemed to be breaking out. While the entire universe was filled with tension, the joint fleet of the three universal civilizations finally came into contact with a defense circle built by the Beyond Grade A Association outside the mechanical race's territory. In the bright, starry sky, the enormous joint fleet was slowly advancing. The defense circle of the mechanical race's territory had already entered their field of vision. The defense circle was made up of fleets, temporary star fortresses, and mobile satellite bases. At a glance, there seemed to be no end to it. The shining array of psionic shields formed a super-large protective shield that extended all the way out. It was like a wall made of energy, using this as a boundary to separate two areas. In the command room of the main ship, Fleet Commander Simon Dagoma stood in front of the porthole and stared at the defense circle that was getting closer and closer. He was a senior military officer of the Radiant Federation and was the commander of this joint fleet. The adjutant looked at the radar screen and whispered, "Commander Simon, we've already arrived at the defense circle of the other party. They're blocking our path. Should we stop?" Simon did not even turn his head and coldly said, "What's the order from above?" "Surround the mechanical race's territory." "Is this the mechanical race's territory?" Simon asked. "No, it's not. Then why should we stop?" "Understood." The adjutant took a deep breath and ordered in the channel with a deep voice, "Order all ships to continue forward and prepare for battle. If anyone continues to block us, clear them all." The order was quickly sent out, and the battleships of the joint fleet extended their cannons and aimed ahead, ready to fire at any time. The front of the joint fleet gradually entered the range of the defense circle. The distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer, and the atmosphere in the command room became more and more tense. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Almost all the crew members held their breaths. Ding! At this time, a remote projection suddenly appeared in the command room. It was the military upper echelon of the battle command. "Orders from above. The fleet is to stop advancing immediately." "Stop!" Simon raised his hand and clenched his fist. The adjutant immediately passed down the order. Very soon, the joint fleet slowly stopped and was only a short distance away from the defense circle. The battleships at the front could almost see their own crew members through the portholes. Seeing this, the atmosphere in the command room relaxed, and everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Simon turned to look at the projection of the military upper echelon and did not seem surprised at all. He calmly asked, "Any other orders from above?" "Spread out and surround them. Wait for orders and wait for the results of the negotiation." At the same time, in the mechanical race's territory, you guessed right, the three universal civilizations aren't willing to start a conflict immediately. Manison's Lord's avatar looked at the remote screen, shook his head, and chuckled. The three universal civilizations definitely didn't send their fleet here to fight directly. If they really wanted to attack your mechanical race's territory, they would have used the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device long ago. Plus, your main body isn't here, so there's not much use in attacking the mechanical race. This should be the last test. Han Xiao sat opposite him, narrowed his eyes, and replied casually. This place had become the center of the storm, and the entire universe was paying attention to the situation here. He had arrived not long ago, and the only beyond grade is here were him and Madison. Although they've made up their minds, they're still not decisive enough. Madison shook his head. Han Xiao did not comment and turned to look at him. Because of you, the situation has changed to this point. Don't you have anything to say? What do you want me to say? Do you still want to get off the boat now? Madison paused. I've been tricked by you, so there's nothing to say. However, I'm here to help you, so you have to show a begging attitude, right? Weird. Do you like to see me lower my head that much? Madison was not in a bad mood at this time, so he did not bother about this. He casually said, Then take it as me begging you. Help me solve this matter. Han Zhao's eyes moved slightly. He glanced at the interface, and a strange smile appeared on his face before quickly disappearing. He shook his chest muscles and slowly stood up. Let's go. It's my turn to personally meet our old boss. Thank you for the short and powerless leather armor. Thank you for the 10,000 reward. Thank you for the 10,000 reward. Thank you for the short and powerless leather armor. Thank you for the 10,000 reward. Book Rebirth Ferocious by the Rebirth Demon King Introduction. Disaster, Strange Xinxia, Beast. After waking up, Lin Tianxiong has returned to being a teenager. Evil Sect Elder, Patron, Dao Seeker, Killer. Random Identities, Endless Journeys. End of chapter. Chapter 1319. In the defense circle of the mechanical race's territory, the three universal civilizations' joint fleet and the Beyond Grade 8 Association's joint fleet had been in a standoff for some time. At the edge of the battlefield, spaceships with different galactic media logos were broadcasting the situation here. Neither side chased away these war media. Because this place could very well become a battlefield, these media outlets sent unmanned spaceships to broadcast remotely. This storm center that could ignite a war was already the most watched place in the entire universe. The overall number of viewers had already exceeded the historical record. The three universal civilizations' fleet has been stopped. The two sides did not exchange fire and seem to be observing. Although we don't know the reason, the war has not broken out yet. We sincerely hope that there will be a turn for the better. In the Galactic Media's network broadcast room, the host had a serious expression. Countless viewers were nervously watching the screen, feeling uneasy. After this period of publicity, most people knew that this would be the turning point of the situation. Once the two sides started fighting here, it would very likely lead to an all-out war between the three universal civilizations and the Beyond Grade A Association. Countless people were panicking about this. At this moment, two shooting stars appeared on the screen. They came from afar and quickly shot from within the defense circle to the area where the two sides were facing each other, revealing their respective figures. The Mecha Empire has finally appeared. The other is the president of the Beyond Grade A Association, Black Star. He's here personally, so he's probably here to stop the three universal civilizations. Hearing the host's introduction, countless galactic residents focused on the two of them. Many people had mixed feelings about these two people who had turned the universe into what it was today. Han Xiao crossed the Beyond Grade A Association's fleet, arrived between the two armies, and hovered in the middle of the standoff. He immediately became the focus of attention on the battlefield. The battleships of both sides locked onto him, magnifying his figure on the screen. He glanced at the shockingly large fleet of the three universal civilizations, opened the public channel, and openly shouted, not avoiding anyone. You're not fighting, and you're not retreating. Then the person in charge should come out and talk. I believe that this is not what everyone wants to see. If we can come up with a plan that we can all accept, no one is willing to use force to solve the problem. As soon as he said that, The battlefield fell silent for a while. Then, 3 beams of light shot out from the main ship, forming the remote projections of the 3 universal civilizations' leaders in front of Han Xiao. At the same time, they connected to the public channel. Once the communication was connected, Lewis spoke in a deep voice and went straight to the point. Blackstar, are you bent on monopolizing the virtual mutiny virus technology and sheltering the heinous Mecha Empire? Han Xiao shook his head. The virtual mutiny virus was destroyed a long time ago. The Mecha Empire only researched it on their own and obtained some results. It was originally developed by them, so how could they claim it for themselves? Although this technology was dangerous, there was no obligation to hand it over to the 3 universal civilizations. At the same time, it did not harm the galactic society, so how could it be a heinous crime? On the other hand, you sent an army to surround the Mecha Empire's territory and try to force them to hand over their technology. That's not very honorable. The Mecha Empire has a criminal record. Their motive for researching this technology is questionable. For safety reasons, we need to control this technology and control the Mecha Empire themselves. This is all to protect the galactic society. This is the responsibility of the 3 universal civilizations, Marbruce said with a serious expression. Han Zhao's expression did not change. Back then, during the Intelligent Plague, many beyond Grade A mechanics worked together to resolve the disaster. This has already proven that the Association is also protecting the safety of the universe. We will also ensure that this technology will not harm the galactic society. This is an internal matter of the Association, and the 3 universal civilizations will not interfere. The Beyond Grade A Development Union is just a civilian organization, the Ethereal Pope said seriously. There's no real meaning in guaranteeing it. The 3 universal civilizations have the right to manage it. At the same time, the 3 universal civilizations also have the right to supervise all factors that endanger the galactic society. This is within the scope of the civilization jurisdiction law. The Mecha Empire must hand over the virtual mutiny virus technology. Impossible. Han Xiao rejected decisively. The association's statement has already expressed its attitude. Individuals have the freedom to research and will not be forced to hand it over. The association will restrict the scope of application of this technology. We hope that the 3 universal civilizations will withdraw their troops immediately. Lewis paused, raised his tone, and said majestically, as long as the Mecha Empire hands over the technology, we will withdraw our troops. Before that, we will not stop this military operation for any reason. We will give an ultimatum of 10 days. We hope that the association will consider this carefully and not make the wrong decision. So, there's no room for discussion? You have 10 days. Han Xiao nodded. His tone changed, and he said with a deep voice, since that's the case, I'll be the one to decide. If you want to force the association to hand over the technology, you'll have to get past me first. Then he sat down with his legs crossed and hovered in the middle of the 2 armies. Although he was alone, he seemed to have become an endless line in the eyes of the others. The leaders of the 3 universal civilizations looked at him deeply, and their remote projections disappeared. The conversation between the 2 sides was carried out in the public channel. It was not hidden from the outside world, and everyone present heard it. It was also broadcasted by the media. The expressions of countless galactic residents changed. Did the negotiation fail? It's over. Neither side is giving in. Looks like they're really going to fight. There's still 10 days. I wonder if we can take refuge in time. The Galactic Society was in a state of panic. Han Xiao glanced at the fleets of the 3 universal civilizations. Seeing that they were waiting for orders, he shook his head. As the president, he represented the position of the association. It was impossible for him to give in. He would definitely not hand over the technology. However, the 3 universal civilizations had put on such a big show. They would not retreat until they achieved their goal. Neither side was willing to give in. 10 days, Han Xiao mumbled. This was the ultimatum given by the 3 universal civilizations. After 10 days, if they still did not reach a consensus, they would probably really fight. The three universal civilizations were probably determined to bear the consequences of war this time. He opened the interface and took a look. At this time, a new mission had been pinned to the top of the mission list. It was the mission triggered by Madison. The requirement was to resolve the siege of the mechanical race's territory. As long as the three universal civilizations could retreat, the mission would be completed. Perhaps because Madison had personally asked for help, other than the high amount of experience, the reward was also a chance to draw one of Madison's abilities. Han Xiao naturally would not let go of another chance to steal Madison's underwear. He casually opened the forums and took a look. His statement earlier was also recorded by the players in the fleet. Unlike the galactic residents, who were terrified, the players basically wanted the world to be in chaos. Almost all of them were excited about the current situation. Regarding his statement of "I am the world," all kinds of comments, such as domineering and awesome, appeared on the video. Beep, beep. At this moment, the communicator suddenly rang. It was from Bruce. Han Xiao was not surprised at all. Public negotiations were more about expressing their attitude to the outside world. The real deal had to be negotiated in private. After connecting the call, the projections of the three universal civilizations' leaders appeared on the screen of the mechanical suit. Black Star, do you really want to start a war? Bruce asked in a low voice. I should be the one asking you that. Han Xiao was calm. Don't think that you can be fearless just because you have the Sanctum Revival. You're leading the Beyond Grade as to death, Lewis said coldly. Isn't that what you want to see? If you're not worried about the losses of starting a war, why are you negotiating with me in private now? Our research is not without results. The Sanctum Revival requires the consumption of certain special resources, and it can't be used as one pleases. You can't scare us now. Furthermore, those revivers have already used their revival opportunities. If we really fight, there will also be losses. No one wants that, the ethereal Pope said. Then what do you have in mind? Han Xiao smacked his lips. We want the virtual mutiny virus technology and information related to the Sanctum Revival. In exchange, not only will we withdraw our troops, but we will also remove the ban on the association and support your development. We can even provide you with enough universal treasures, technical blueprints, and promise that the members of the Black Star Corps will not be on the liquidation list in the future. These transactions will be done in private and will not be made public to the outside world. The reason we withdraw our troops can be because we're afraid of your combat strength, so we can help you achieve your fame. You think too much if you're ugly. See you again. Without waiting for him to finish, Han Xiao ended the call. They were not on the same page at all. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to hang up on the leaders of the three universal civilizations. In the past, when they had not fallen out, he would not give face to such big shots. Now he was in a good mood. On the other side, in the command room of the main ship of the three universal civilizations joint fleet. Okay, I understand. After hearing the orders from above, the fleet commander Simon responded a few times, put down the communicator, returned to the command deck, and calmly ordered, "Pass down my order. The engineering team will begin assembling the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device. It will be warmed up in 12 hours and connected to the coordinates of the sending location." The higher-ups are sending reinforcements? The chief of staff asked. Simon turned around and looked at Han Xiao, who was sitting alone in the starry sky outside the porthole. A glint flashed across his eyes, and he said with an inexplicable tone, his eyes flashed, and he said, "The higher-ups have ordered us to welcome the direct Beyond Grade as who are teleported over. How many are coming?" Hearing this, Simon glanced at him. All of them. In the guest room of Black Star Palace. A group of Beyond Grade as gathered and were watching the news broadcast in mechanical race's territory. They had different expressions and were discussing in low voices. Black Star's attitude is too tough. If this continues, there will be no room for mediation. The old dragon Milizaus was worried. Sun Hunter was fiddling with his gun and said, "Mediation, my ass. This battle is unavoidable. Black Star is not pretending to be there alone. I'm guessing he's waiting for the three universal civilizations to send their direct members to deal with him. Whether it's a siege or a tag team battle, he'll accept it all. This is to establish his dominance. Is he reliable alone? Kant frowned. If the three universal civilizations send out all their forces, the Dark Emperor and the Golden Ring will definitely not be left behind. Those guys guarding the secondary dimension world bases will also most likely be transferred back. No matter how strong he is, it'll be enough for him to suffer. Even the gods chosen might take action. Black Star should be able to deal with the others, but the gods chosen. Kasui hesitated. If he uses the national weapon of the Arcane Church, Black Star might be in trouble. Hela crossed her arms, crossed her legs, and coldly said, "Don't worry about Black Star. He's tough. Let's think about the threat in front of us first." The armies of the three universal civilizations have already sealed the door to the flickering world, the Dawn Star Cluster. They might attack at any time. There are probably no less than 10,000 over-the-horizon planet destruction weapons aiming here. 10,000? You're underestimating the three universal civilizations. Sun Hunter snorted. Kasui shook his head. We've already made all the necessary arrangements. We can only wait for the changes in the primeval Star River. At least, before the three universal civilizations take action against the mechanical race's territory, the troops in the other areas won't open fire. Everyone sighed. When the scene really happened, they still felt uncertain in their hearts. No matter what, the opponent was the overlord of this universe. This long-lasting fear was not something that could be easily eliminated. The turning point of the situation came so quickly that even many beyond grade as were not used to it. However, the drastic changes in the era were always sudden, and they rarely gave people the chance to slowly adapt. They could only accept reality. Chapter 1320. At the same time, in the Dawn Star Cluster, the flickering world portal. The surface of the many military base planets was filled with many deep wells, in which were hidden many beyond grade a psionic planet annihilation cannons. They were aimed at the Geru Star Cluster, the Crown Star Cluster, and the Renault Star Cluster. These were the areas of the second exploration phase, and were now the prosperous territories of many beyond grade A organizations. Among them, most of the planet annihilation cannons were aimed at Black Star's territory. The Dawn Star Cluster was the area that the Red Empire had taken over the earliest. Many of the planets were military-restricted areas. After decades of secret modification, the insides of these planets had long been modified into special anti-star weapons. After the first meeting of the gods a few decades ago, the Red Empire had secretly carried out this modification project to prepare for the current situation. Once the situation changed, this star cluster could immediately become a bridgehead for war and seal off the normal channels between the flickering world and the explored universe. The fleets of the three universal civilizations were stationed all over the Dawn Star Cluster, and the temporary command center of the three universal civilizations was changed from Planet Lighthouse to a military planet in the Dawn Star Cluster. Maintain the highest alert level for the next 10 days. As long as the joint fleet starts a war in the mechanical race's territory, it will be the signal for us to take action. Bombard all the beyond grade A organizations, including the Black Star Corps' territory. In the temporary command center, Ewan Fabic looked around at the many officers in the room with eyes as sharp as an eagle's. He was a high-ranking officer of the Red Empire. After Tarakov retired, he took over as the Marshal of the Dynasty's Exploration Army. In the recent storm, the three universal civilizations had divided the flickering world into an independent and important war zone, and he directly became the commander of the war zone, in charge of commanding the military operations of the three universal civilizations in the flickering world. Understood. Everyone replied in unison. Ewan turned to look at one of the officers and said, "The higher-ups don't have enough manpower, so they can't send their direct beyond grade as to guard this place. How are the interception measures? When the battle starts, the beyond grade as will definitely try to take down the command center with their individual strength. If we can't stop them from invading the Dawn Star Cluster, the situation will be very passive. The engineering team is racing against time to set up the interception equipment, as well as set up strangulation traps and rapid reinforcement channels. If the beyond grade has fall too deep, there's a chance that they will be surrounded and annihilated by us. Give me a report later. Ewan raised his hand, indicating that there was no need to say more. He then turned to ask about the progress of the other arrangements. Whether or not the three universal civilizations and the association would fight in the end was not his concern. He only cared about his duty, which was to prepare for the war and ensure that the strategic plan could be carried out strictly. On lighthouse devices were floating devices from the outside. It looked like a desolate planet, but once they entered the atmosphere, they could see the true appearance of the planet. It was a mechanical fortress armed to the teeth, with countless battleships and mechanical armies moving up and down. On top of the tallest building, Aurora stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking at a giant white mechanical ring in the distance. This was a new directional teleportation gate technology that Han Xiao had dug out from Jace's technology treasure trove. It could be used to transport troops on a large scale, but it had not been activated yet. Behind her stood a dense crowd, their bodies emitting a faint glow. They were all reincarnated hero spirits who had obtained physical bodies. The 8 hero spirit kings were lined up in a row, followed by thousands of calamity-grade hero spirits, followed by countless grade B hero spirits. When Manison's warehouse was destroyed, Han Xiao had urgently summoned Aurora, who was wandering outside, and given her a secret mission, which was to hide in a secret base and use Edo reincarnation nonstop. Other than eating, drinking, and resting, she would spend the rest of her time summoning the underworld hero spirits. Aurora's life during this period was to summon hero spirits, rest, and recover, then continue summoning. This cycle almost drained her dry, and it was not easy for her to reach her current scale. The duration of these reincarnated hero spirits was dependent on the speed of their body's activity loss. As long as they were not killed or removed by Aurora, they could basically exist for a long time. Especially now that they were in low-energy standby mode without fighting, the speed of their activity loss was almost negligible. This was why Aurora could continue to expand her scale and accumulate an army. Aurora turned to look at the hero spirits and said softly, "Black Star said that before the warning period ends, you guys are to cause a ruckus in the Dawn Star cluster and destroy the 3 universal civilizations' planetary obliteration weapons as much as possible." He sure knows how to order people around. Sorokin snorted. After being a hero spirit for more than 40 years, he had already accepted his fate and gotten used to his identity. However, he still did not give up his hobby of accumulating wealth. In order to satisfy his hobby, he thought of a way to modify the social environment of the underworld. Because hero spirits basically did not have any material enjoyment in their soul form, Sorokin discovered the common needs of many hero spirits after a long period of observation. Therefore, according to the characteristics of the hero spirits, he created a concept currency system in the underworld based on promises. A promise currency meant that he owed someone something, and different levels and identities of heroic spirits gave different face values for their promises. When a hero spirit made a promise to another or more hero spirits, it was equivalent to printing money. Sorokin came up with a special credit system to prevent the hero spirits from recklessly making promises that would cause inflation and solve a series of problems that would damage the value of the promise currency. Furthermore, the amount of promise currency that each hero spirit could create per cycle was limited, and this two-way promise currency could be sold to others. It was similar to transferring a debt relationship. In order to implement this system, Sorokin had put in a lot of effort. He even convinced Aurora and Onisilu to link the caching method with the chance of reincarnation and the time of reincarnation. This was equivalent to a chance for ordinary hero spirits to get some fresh air. The hero spirits of the underworld who had nothing to do usually slowly accepted this system. After cultivating a market, Sorokin used a series of skillful capitalist methods to harvest a large amount of promise currency. Now, the average hero spirit of the underworld owed him 37 requests, and he had become the richest person in the underworld. Although it did not have much practical significance, the wealth itself satisfied him. This war allowed Sorokin to see the opportunity to realize the promised currency on a large scale. After all, the hero spirits of the underworld were natural death squads, so they would definitely be reincarnated frequently. Although they were summoned to fight, it was much better than staying in the underworld and doing nothing. As for the conflict between the Association and the three universal civilizations, Sorokin was not interested. After all, his identity was different now, and it was not his place to worry about such things. Aurora retracted her gaze and continued to look ahead. In a place where the hero spirits could not see, her expression became worried. In a few key star fields, the three universal civilizations and the Association had similar spies. Once a full-scale war broke out, there would be a storm of blood everywhere. She could not bear to see such a scene. If the war really breaks out, I hope I can save more people with the underworld, Primeval Star River, Mechanical Race territory. The news media was still broadcasting the confrontation. It had been a long time since the negotiation failed, and Han Shao was in the middle. It was as if he was separating the two fleets, and no one moved. Looking at the broadcast that seemed to be frozen, the countless galactic residents became more and more anxious. More than half a day had passed, and there was still no movement from either side. Were they going to be in a stalemate for the next 10 days? 10 days later, there would not be any change in the attitude of either side, right? Just as many people were feeling pessimistic, there was a sudden movement in the three universal civilizations' joint fleet. The multidimensional sky opening transportation device suddenly activated and spun at high speed for a while. With a flash of light, another small fleet teleported over. Reinforcements are here. The countless galactic residents were energized. Although they did not know what the three universal civilizations were doing, it was good that there were changes. Through the broadcast, the gazes of countless people followed this small fleet, watching it pass through the military formation and connect with the main ship of the joint fleet. At the same time, in the command room of the three universal civilizations joint fleet, all the crew members, including Commander Simon, stood up to welcome the newcomers. The sound of footsteps slowly approached along the corridor, and a group of people with different appearances walked into the command room. Seeing this, the crew members were slightly restless. They deliberately lowered their voices and excitedly chatted, reporting the names of this group of people. Dark Emperor Claudi of the Red Empire, Thunder Guzer, Leader Padro, Army Flag Unit, Golden Ring, Olu of the Radiant Federation, Super Teacher, Verena, Guardian Uma, God's Chosen Wernos of the Arcane Church, Mechanical Catastrophe Francisco, St. Moran. They're all big shots. At this time, all the direct beyond grade as of the three universal civilizations had arrived. There were dozens of them who had been urgently recruited. Simon took a few steps forward, nodded to everyone, and said, "Everyone, let's not waste time. I believe the upper echelons have already given the order. Everyone knows what to do." Hearing this, everyone turned to look out of the porthole, their eyes locked onto Han Shao, who was occupying the starry sky. Olu smirked, revealing a sinister look. "Don't worry. Since we're here, he won't be able to continue showing off. I'll leave Black Star to you guys." Simon nodded. The exchange of fire between the fleets was the signal for an all-out war. Before the deadline, the three universal civilizations did not allow their armies to take action. However, since Black Star had jumped out to challenge them in his own name, they could use their upper echelons to test the waters. Therefore, the three universal civilizations called their direct members, not willing to see Black Star continue to be arrogant. They planned to reduce the prestige of the association and put pressure on him. At this time, Verena, with her long hair fluttering in the wind, glanced at everyone and slowly said, "Black Star is famous for his ferocity and his battle record. He's extremely difficult to deal with. However, if we gang up on him from the start, it won't look good. Only Claudi, Ulu, and Wernos have the ability to fight Black Star alone. Which of you three will go first?" Hearing this, everyone's eyes turned to the three of them. Most of them looked at Wernos, who was recognized as the strongest. Wernos lowered his eyes and remained silent, as if he was not interested in this mission. In fact, if not for the ethereal Pope ordering him to come here, he would not have wanted to leave the Pantheon Temple at all. Seeing that he did not speak, everyone looked away and looked at Claudia. You used to work with Black Star, so you should know his abilities better than us, Verena said. Claudia frowned. I don't know more than you guys. At this time, Olu interrupted him. Stop fighting. I'll deal with him. I've long wanted to fight Black Star. Maybe I can take him down directly. Seeing this, everyone nodded. No one fought with him. At this moment, Verena tapped her forehead with her finger, and a pure white spiritual light flew out and landed on Olu's body. Olu shuddered and felt the energy in his body start to surge and roar. His strength increased bit by bit. Even without strengthening, I can deal with Black Star. Olu clicked his tongue and did not appreciate it. This is all for safety reasons. Verena's expression did not change. She was the director of the Radiant Federation's Superpower Research Institute. She had a compound Esper ability, which was mainly inclined to support and strengthen the abilities of other supers. She could also analyze the development trend of the target's abilities and formulate a perfect training plan. This was also the origin of her nickname, Super Mentor. A few minutes later, Han Xiao, who was resting in the middle of the battlefield, suddenly frowned and slowly opened his eyes. In his vision, a familiar figure walked out of the three universal civilizations' fleet formation and floated not far away from him, exuding a powerful aura that belonged to a peak beyond grade Ulu. Han Xiao spoke softly, and his voice sounded in the public channel. Ulu narrowed his eyes. I heard that if I want the association a hand over the technology, I have to go through you first? As long as you can beat me, it's not impossible. Han Xiao did not think much of it and replied casually. Hearing this, Ulu's eyes flashed, and he said with a deep voice, Then you can start thinking about it now. Then his aura quickly rose, and dense golden rings spread out behind him, connecting to a dazzling golden world. The energy seemed to be endless. This was the golden treasure ship dimension that made him famous. Seeing this, Han Xiao shook his head and slowly said, Do you want to consider joining the association to enjoy the Sanctum revival? That way, you won't die for nothing later. Peak. Chapter 1321. Just as Han Xiao and Ulu were looking at each other affectionately, the galactic residents watching the live broadcast all heard the short conversation between the two parties in the public channel. I heard it. As long as we can defeat Black Star with our high-level combatants, he'll consider compromising. This is a turning point. If Black Star keeps his promise, defeating him will put an end to the flames of war and prevent an all-out war. Work hard, three universal civilizations. The peace of a universe depends on you. If you win, it'll be a great achievement. I don't think so. Black Star is the leader of the Beyond grade, as after all, can the three universal civilizations defeat him? Plus, his value in the weighing cards is too high. I don't think Ulu can do it. Is this the time to talk about cards? We'll only know if they can win after they fight. Speaking of which, if we can use card skills to decide the winner, it'll be much easier to have a game of diplomacy. The countless galactic residents were filled with hope again. Regardless of whether Black Star was telling the truth or not, they could only place their hopes on this. No one wanted to be affected by the outbreak of war. As long as there was a turning point, it was a good thing. At this moment, in the eyes of the galactic residents, Black Star seemed to have become a great villain. As long as they defeated him, they would be able to maintain world peace. One after another, countless people cheered for the three universal civilizations in their hearts, wishing that they could see Black Star lying on the ground the next second. On the other side, in the main ship of the three universal civilizations joint fleet, the other direct Beyond grade, as we're watching the two of them from the command room, preparing to watch the battle. Do you think Ulu could defeat Black Star? Someone asked. Less than 50%. If Black Star was so easy to deal with, the higher-ups wouldn't have recruited all of us. Verena shook her head. Then why did they let him fight alone? Although it's not good to gang up on him, It'll be embarrassing if he loses, right? User wondered. We didn't expect Olu to win in the first place. Francisco interrupted. With Olu's strength and Verina's enhancement, he should be able to fight Black Star on equal footing. He's just testing him. Nodding her head, Verina explained, that's right. Black Star hasn't fought in public for decades. With his growth rate, the information we have on him is probably outdated. No one knows what level he's at now. With Olu's strength, he can force Black Star to show his true ability and collect information for us so that we can formulate targeted countermeasures. Anyway, we have 10 days, so there's no need to rush. Only by knowing yourself and the enemy can we increase our chances of winning. Hearing this, everyone immediately agreed. Black Star had dominated the universe for decades and was already recognized as a ferocious person in the beyond grade A circle. No one present dared to underestimate him. Olu was a pinnacle beyond grade A in the universe, one of the best among them. Letting him test Black Star right from the start was already a sign of respect in everyone's eyes. While all the direct beyond grade as were having their own thoughts, Han Xiao and Olu, who were facing each other in the middle of the battlefield, started fighting without saying a word. It was like lightning striking the earth. Olu's eyes lit up with a strong light as he activated the golden treasure ship dimension. The next moment, streams of resplendent golden light beams shot out from the densely packed rings behind him like a fountain. The scene was like a barrage of cannon shots. Han Xiao was unmoved. His body shook, and mechanical force spread out. The mechanical army hidden in his body through compressed orb innovation martial body immediately shot out along with the mechanical force and expanded instantly, turning into a black mass of mech legion. They set up thick psionic shields and blocked in front of Han Xiao, forming a barrier. Golden light beams bombarded the psionic shield like a storm. Golden light particles splattered everywhere, and purplish-blue electric arcs danced crazily. Seeing this, Olu immediately increased his strength and summoned more golden rings, shooting out scorching golden light beams endlessly toward Han Zhao's mechanical army as if energy was free. His Esper ability is to communicate with the golden treasure ship dimension and borrow its energy. He's also someone with an unlimited amount of energy and is best at covering fire. He often uses unlimited energy to grind his opponent to death. The golden treasure ship itself is a special secondary dimension. Its energy nature is very destructive, and it also has a compound function. Olu's information flashed through Han Zhao's mind, but his hands were not slow. He opened the secondary dimensional army box, and more mechanical troops rushed out. The psionic shield instantly became many times thicker. No matter how much firepower Olu unleashed, the guards in front of Han Xiao still did not move. There was no need for Han Xiao to dodge at all. He summoned his divine mechanical throne, sat on it, and commanded his troops. At the same time, the long-range troops in the Mech Legion also began to fight back. Under the lead of the Apostle weapons, the melee troops charged toward Olu from all directions. The next moment, the two sides engaged in a fierce battle. The scene was intense, and all kinds of beams of light filled the battlefield. The three universal civilizations' joint fleet had no choice but to retreat a certain distance and set up shields to avoid being affected. Sitting on a mechanical throne, Han Zhao's eyes followed Olu, and his eyes flickered. Although infinite mana was one of the characteristics of a beyond grade A, in his opinion, this ability had a weakness that was not a weakness. No matter how much energy one had, there was a limit to one's output. Olu's energy rank was the upper limit of his output. Olu's energy rank was firmly in the top echelon, not any weaker than Kasui. After receiving Verina's bonuses, his energy rank increased even more. However, compared to Han Zhao's current energy rank, it was still quite far away. After developing in a low-profile manner for decades, the bonuses from his talents were not for nothing. His combat strength was already extremely shocking. He did not even need to activate a character summon card to gain the upper hand. This was the advantage of pure strength. Han Xiao only took out 10 apostle weapons to catch Olu and beat him up. With his exquisite coordination, Ulu was in a rather sorry state. With the bonuses from his mechanical force, the combat strength of the Apostle weapons was already firmly at the Beyond Grade A level. They could even exchange blows with high-level Beyond Grade As. With such a huge advantage, there was no need for any fancy moves. He could just use F2A and be done with it. One word could describe the current situation: one-sided. This person's threat to me is limited. He's no match for me. Losing to me is only a matter of time. Heh, if I can't even beat you, why would I have so many talents? After looking at it for a while, Han Xiao smirked, shook his head, and opened the interface. Not long after Ulu issued the challenge, the long-awaited Beyond Grade A challenge mission finally appeared again. Fighting one-on-one in front of so many people clearly had enough influence to trigger a mission. The mission type was still the same as before. The best reward was still drawing a character summon card and one of the opponent's abilities. A fat sheep sent to my door. I love one-on-one battles the most. Isn't this forcing me to use battle to nurture battle? Han Xiao chuckled. He remained calm and patiently commanded the army to fight. His various talents were still in effect, and his condition was constantly improving. The battle was getting easier and easier. On the other hand, Ulu was having a hard time. In the eyes of outsiders, the Mech Legion was like a black swarm of bees, constantly attacking Ulu back and forth. Although the golden beams that Ulu wantonly scattered could destroy pieces of the mechanical army from time to time, the empty positions would be quickly filled by other mechanical soldiers. Furthermore, the damaged machines would quickly reassemble and enter the battlefield again. It looked like Ulu was an insect that had landed on a spider's web. He could only struggle in vain, breaking out of the encirclement time and time again, only to be surrounded again and again. Ulu's expression had already changed. Only seriousness was left. It was not that he had never fought against a pinnacle Beyond Grade A mechanic before. This level of firepower was usually enough to cause flaws in the opponent's Mech Legion. However, up until now, Black Star's mechanical army was still like an impenetrable net, tightly covering him. Furthermore, it was so tough that he could not tear it apart no matter what. In particular, these 10 Apostle weapons were ridiculously strong. Not only did they make him feel extremely tired, but he also did not dare let his guard down. If he was careless, he might be killed on the spot. Attrition battles were his forte, but now he was being suppressed. Seeing that the situation was not going well, Ulu could not help but look at Black Star behind the mechanical army. He seemed to have an idea, and coincidentally met Han Zhao's eyes, which were filled with anticipation. Just looking at each other, Ulu's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly gave up on the idea of attacking Han Xiao. I almost forgot. This guy is not a normal mechanic. If I really did break through, I don't know who will be the one attacking who. I don't want to be killed by him. Unable to find a way to break through, Ulu became more and more anxious. He could only continue to bombard the enemy, but the injuries on his body continued to increase as time passed. The battle lasted for a long time. The scene was always this simple, violent, and not flashy. At this time, Ulu suddenly erupted. The golden energy created a wave, pushing back the mechanical soldiers around him, allowing him to break out of the encirclement once again. However, he did not charge toward Han Xiao, but ran in the opposite direction, charging into the formation of the 3 Universal Civilizations Joint Fleet. With the help of the battleships, he quickly left the battlefield. Seeing this, Han Xiao raised his hand and stopped the mechanical army. He did not chase after Ulu and attack the Joint Fleet. After watching Ulu escape into the main ship, Han Xiao then shouted in the public channel with a half-smile. That's it. As soon as he said that, Han Xiao waved his hand and recalled the mechanical soldiers in the field. He did not look angry at all, as though he had just done something insignificant. After doing all this, Han Xiao continued to sit on the divine mechanical throne calmly, holding his chin with one hand and looking at the 3 Universal Civilizations fleet with his head tilted. Next one. Please find someone who can warm me up. Seeing this, the many galactic residents who had high hopes for Ulu suddenly felt like a basin of cold water had been poured over them. Their little flames of hope were extinguished instantly, leaving only dejection. He lost just like that. Black Star didn't seem to have gotten up from the start to the end. Was it too easy? Countless galactic residents felt a stifling sensation in their chests, unable to breathe. They were so stifled that they felt like vomiting blood. They thought they could see a fierce battle, but they didn't expect Ulu to die so easily. He was really incompetent, and his enthusiasm was wasted. Because they were not powerful supers, most of them could not understand the details of the battle. They only knew that Black Star was just sitting there, not moving, while Ulu was forced to flee by the other party's mechanical army. From the beginning to the end, the two of them did not collide at all. Ulu's side was embarrassing, while Black Star's side was full of health. No one knew how strong a Beyond Grade A was, so they could only judge from the performance. Then, a question appeared in the minds of many galactic residents. Was it because Ulu was too weak, or was Black Star too strong? On the other side, in the main ship of the three universal civilizations, when the direct Beyond Grade, as who were watching the battle saw this result, they all fell silent. Their eyes were filled with shock and doubt. As the saying went, the layman only watched for the show, while the expert watched for the technique. Only Beyond Grade, as like them, knew what information was contained in this battle that did not seem to have any suspense. Black Star's mechanical force strength had already raised the performance of the Mech Legion to a higher level. It was a complete suppression of energy rank. The difference is actually this big. Verina's eyes widened in disbelief. She knew that Ulu's chances of winning were not high, but she did not expect Black Star to win so easily, beating Ulu away with the traditional army style. Originally, she had hoped that Ulu would force Black Star to use his strength so that they could collect intelligence. However, she did not expect Ulu to not even be able to complete the mission of probing. He was completely crushed by Black Star without being forced to use any of his trump cards. This feeling was like using a skill to trick the opponent, but it was taken away by a series of simple attacks. No matter what, Ulu was still a first-tier expert, not some random trash. However, he lost in such a cowardly manner, not gaining any advantage at all. Just how strong is Black Star now? He wasn't this strong before, Claudia said solemnly. The only explanation is that his strength has improved again in the past few decades, and he hit it deeply. This is not good. User's expression was serious. You probably won't be Black Star's match, even if you go up. Claudia remained silent and did not refute. He had also lost confidence. If he did not know Ulu's character well, he would have suspected that Ulu had gone easy on him. I underestimated this guy. His wings are already full. Claudia slowly exhaled a mouthful of foul air, his heart heavy. At this time, the cabin door opened and Ulu walked in. Because he was really afraid that Black Star would scatter his ashes, he had run away as soon as he saw that the situation was not good. His injuries were very light, but he looked like he was in a trance, unable to accept that he had lost so easily. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Everyone turned to look at him with mixed feelings. They didn't know what to say. Brother, you asked for this first battle yourself. Thank you for helping us. Chapter 1322. Beep beep. At this time, Verina's encrypted communicator rang. The face of President Lewis of Radiance appeared on the screen with a dissatisfied expression. The leaders of the three universal civilizations were also watching the live broadcast of the battlefield. They were quite dissatisfied with the results of the battle. What are you guys doing? I didn't ask you guys to go over and support him to get beaten up. Verina had no choice but to walk to the side and explain in a low voice, I'm sorry. I wanted to test him earlier, but Black Star's strength was too different from the intelligence reports. There was an accident. Lewis was silent for a few seconds, suppressing the shock and anger in his heart. Don't be careless anymore. Ulu lost so easily, and it's not good for Radiance's reputation. I don't want something like this to happen again. Okay. Verina hung up the communication with a helpless expression. They had only lost for a short while, and the higher-ups were already questioning them. Normally, the upper echelons would not be so impatient. They must have also been shocked by the battle earlier and could not sit still anymore. So they quickly hinted for the direct members to increase their strength. She knew very well why the upper echelons wanted to recruit all the direct members. They thought that with so many direct members working together, even if they could not kill Black Star, they could at least rely on the advantage of numbers to beat Black Star back. At first, Verena was very confident, but now, she was a little scared. The upper echelons had such an idea because of the intelligence reports on Black Star's strength. However, Black Star's most recent public battle record was still in the battle with Manison a few decades ago. At that time, the two of them were evenly matched, and Black Star spent a lot of effort to defeat the Lord's avatar of the Mecha Empire. Therefore, in the eyes of the three universal civilizations, Black Star was on the same level as peak Manison. Although he had a slight advantage in terms of strength, there was no fundamental difference. Therefore, the three universal civilizations felt that as long as they pulled out all their direct members, it would be enough to teach Black Star a lesson. After all, they had three peak beyond grade as on their side, and the God's Chosen One was publicly recognized as the strongest among them. Even the Mecha Empire would be defeated, so there was no reason for them to lose. However, the strength that Black Star displayed just now refreshed the understanding of the three universal civilizations. Ulu, who was also in the top echelon, actually lost in such an embarrassing manner. Black Star clearly did not use his full strength, not even forcing out his signature ability. Although he knew that Black Star had been developing in a low-key manner for decades, and the information was outdated, the gap was too big. What should we do next? Everyone suppressed their emotions and looked at each other. Although they were shocked, they still had to carry out the mission given to them by their superiors. Verena pondered for a while and said, "The target's strength is beyond our expectations. It seems that we can only fight him with numbers. Let's discuss how to deal with him." The group of people started discussing as if they were facing a great enemy. They were all stunned by Han Zhao's strength. Even if they wanted to surround and beat him up, they did not dare act rashly before they came up with a reliable plan. Werno stood at the edge of the crowd and did not participate in the discussion. He looked up at the porthole and stared at Han Zhao, who was floating in the starry sky in the distance. The expression in his eyes changed, and he muttered to himself. His energy rank is estimated to be above 110,000. At least one of his god's trait transformation routes has been perfected. It's worth enlightening. On the other side, in the mechanical race flagship, the crew members were encouraged by this crushing battle and cheered. In front of the porthole, Manison silently looked at Han Zhao's back. Although his doppelganger did not have any expression, his heart was in turmoil. This guy is already so strong? Manison was also shocked. His impression of Han Zhao was still the same as before. It had been a long time since he saw Black Star fight. Although he knew that he was most likely no match for Black Star, he did not expect the gap to be so huge. Even if he were to deal with Ulu, he would not be able to do it so easily. If they did not fight until the sky was dark, there would not be a winner. Black Star is becoming more and more unfathomable. How did he train? Realizing that Black Star had left him behind and that he could no longer understand Han Zhao's limits, Manison could not help but feel complicated and a little jealous. However, after hesitating for a few seconds, Manison felt relieved and sighed softly in his heart. Perhaps only such a person had the ability to lead the beyond grade as to a higher level. Having such a leader was the blessing of the beyond grade as of this era. Perhaps the only thing Black Star lacked was his foundation. Manison's eyes moved, and he made up his mind. He was not a stingy person. If Black Star needed it now, he would not mind lending his own machinery to Black Star. With Black Star's ability and my foundation, it's probably hard to find a match in the universe. Manison's thoughts quickly turned. Like I said, the three universal civilizations are too arrogant. How could they casually send out someone comparable to Black Star? Joey and the other three stay-at-home old men looked relieved as they watched the broadcast. They had only fought Black Star more than a year ago, so they were the group of people who knew Black Star's strength the best in the entire universe. Back then, their confidence had collapsed, and they had not completely recovered until now. Seeing Black Star scared them. When they saw that the three universal civilizations had only sent Olu out, Joey and the others were extremely surprised. They thought that the three universal civilizations had hidden dragons and crouching tigers, having experts on par with Black Star. This made them feel uneasy. However, when they saw the one-sided battle, Joey and the others realized that they had been overthinking. It was a false alarm. They thought that the one who made the move was a big brother, but it turned out to be a stinky little brother. The intelligence of the three universal civilizations is too outdated. Just one peak beyond grade A is probably not enough to fill the gaps between Black Star's teeth. Joey shook his head. If they want to gain the upper hand, they can only fight with numbers, just like how we did back then. Joey was a little embarrassed. Black Star seems to have a very easy time dealing with the four of us. I wonder where his limit is. He's hiding his strength. Do you think he expected this day to come long ago, so he kept a low profile in the outside world for decades? Who knows? The few of them whispered. In the middle of the battlefield in the mechanical race's territory, after beating Olu away, the three universal civilizations seemed to be shocked and did not immediately send out any newcomers to fight. Han Xiao sat on the mechanical throne and calmed down again. Looks like the three universal civilizations didn't have high expectations of my strength. Looking at the three universal civilizations' fleets, Han Xiao secretly curled his lips. He had been developing in a low profile for decades, quietly accumulating his strength during this period. Only the Holy Covenant, Shunner, and Kasui had seen his strength. The outside world knew almost nothing about it. The main reason was that he did not have a chance to fight openly. The circle of beyond grade as was still very narrow, and there were only a few who could fight. When he beat up Joey and the others more than a year ago, Han Xiao had a rough estimate of his strength. Without a dozen high-level beyond grade, as it would be very difficult to pose a threat to him. Now, not only were the effects of his various growth talents steadily improving, but he also had the addition of the Ancient Ones and his first exclusive talent. At the same time, he had also derived some special techniques from SWY-001. His previous estimate of his strength was inaccurate again, and the number of beyond grade as he could deal with had increased. Fighting Olu was just an appetizer for him. He had come with the mentality of killing all to show the outside world what kind of strength was worthy of being the leader of the beyond grade A supers. At the same time, he also wanted to try and get some talents. In such a big situation, he did not believe that he would not have a chance to fight if he stood out in his own name. Seeing that the three universal civilizations were not moving for the time being, Han Xiao did not stay idle. He opened the interface and saw that the mission triggered by Olu had been completed. Beyond Grade A Challenge Mission. Golden Ring Olu completed. You have completed all mission requirements. You have received 860 billion EXP. You have received Character Summon Card. Golden Ring Olu. Character Summon Card. Golden Ring Olu. Golden Treasure Ship. RAM. Condense the energy of the Golden Treasure Ship dimension in your body and perform a long-distance charge. During the charge, you will be in super armor state, immune to all crowd control skills, dealing high melee damage. Maximum number of uses, 0/3. Oh, a face charging skill. Good stuff. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled, and he accepted it with a smile. It was a pity that Olu did not use this skill earlier. Otherwise, he would have been able to move his muscles and give him a good beating. If there's a chance in the future, I'll see if I can get a taunt skill. I feel like this is the only shortcoming in my combat system, Han Xiao pondered. If he could make the enemy jump into his arms just by yelling "come here," he felt excited just thinking about it. Shaking his head, he put away his distracting thoughts and looked at the ability draw notifications. You have received. Draw one of Olu's abilities, skill/talent. Tip: Olu is an Esper. Some of the abilities you can draw have been automatically adjusted according to your class. Randomizing. Randomizing complete. Please choose one of the 5 abilities below as your reward. 1. Fine Energy Control. Talent. Greatly enhances energy control, increases energy resistance by 10%. 2. Secondary dimension affinity, talent. Increases the chances of establishing a connection with certain secondary dimensions. When borrowing the power of the secondary dimensions, the effect will be improved in all aspects. 3. Activity jump, ability, stimulates cells, temporarily increases cell activity. Plus 10% to 20% health, energy, and constitution. Plus 50% to 100% basic recovery speed. Lasts for 15 minutes. 4. Exquisite taste, talent. Plus 15% CHA, making it easier for you to gain the favorability of certain people. 5. Phase blink, ability. Uses the secondary dimensions to move in a phase, allowing you to temporarily dodge most attacks. Cool down, 6 minutes. I didn't get anything. My luck is still SOSO. Han Xiao clicked his tongue. After all, they were different professions. Most of the core abilities of espers could not be drawn. Surprises like gods were not always available. After glancing at it, Han Xiao quickly made his choice. You have received the talent Secondary Dimension Affinity. He currently had a connection with the Void Dimension and the Underworld Dimension. His racial talents were also related to the Void Dimension. Choosing this talent could also indirectly strengthen his talent. As for the other options, they were either too ordinary or there were substitutes. Pick the best out of the worst. In comparison, the ability of this character summon card was actually better. After all, it was the super armor state that made him immune to control. After calculating the rewards, Han Xiao saw that the 3 universal civilizations still did not make a move, so he decided to browse the forums. This wait lasted for more than half a day. When there were only 8.5 days left, the 3 universal civilizations finally made their second move. The 13 direct beyond grade as stepped out of the crowd and came to the front. Han Xiao then closed the forums and sized them up. He saw that Claudi and Ulu were among them too. They were clearly the leaders. This lineup was already quite ridiculous. If it was a head-on battle, other than the gods chosen, no one in the universe could deal with them. Furthermore, unlike the defense of Hela, where actors ran rampant, this team had the same goal and would not go easy on them. Yo, not fighting one-on-one anymore, Han Xiao said with a mocking tone. Ulu's expression was ugly. He had just been beaten into a daze, but now that he had adjusted, he was flustered. He felt that he had lost all his face. If he had known this would happen, he would not have spoken so confidently. How embarrassing. This time, Claudi took over and slowly said, Black Star, your strength is indeed outstanding. However, since you've taken the initiative to challenge us, you shouldn't mind fighting with more people, right? Whatever. No matter how many beyond grade as you send, as long as you can beat me back, our previous agreement will still be valid. Han Xiao did not mind. Claudi nodded. Suddenly, he changed the topic and said, His Excellency the ruler wants me to ask you a question. God was actually killed by you, right? As soon as he said that, the other direct members looked over. Even the spectators were stunned. God's incident had once caused quite a stir, and many people had a vague impression of it. Now that it was brought up again, many people recalled it. Oh, I'm warning you. Although we're enemies, I won't admit to it. Han Zhao's expression did not change. Claudi did not give up and said with a deep voice, You were originally an ally of the dynasty, so we didn't suspect you. However, there were too many suspicious points about what happened back then. In recent years, you've been getting more and more out of hand, so you've become more and more suspicious. There's enough reason to attack God. Sorokin might not be the murderer, but just the target. Han Xiao waved his hand, interrupted him, and casually said, You have to have evidence before you speak. I never had the intention to kill God. You think you can clear your name? I have a clear conscience. Han Xiao did not mind. Of course, I didn't have the intention to kill God. I just sealed him and spared his life. This is not a lie. Furthermore, other than himself, probably no one else knew that God was ES God. He never regretted capturing this guy, but it was a pity that no one knew his contribution. As he spoke, Han Xiao stood up from his throne, and the doors of the secondary dimensional army box opened on both sides of him. Facing such a formation, Han Xiao did not dare be careless. These 13 direct members were not simple. The three universal civilizations had probably given each of them a universal treasure, so they might have some trump cards. Furthermore, when they worked together, the power they could unleash was not just a simple addition. However, while he valued his opponents, he would not show it. 13 beyond grade as, "I'll make do. At least I can use a little more strength." As he spoke, the black mechanical army descended again. This time, they gathered around Han Xiao and quickly combined. He used his mechanical deity right away. Seeing this, Claudia and the others spread out, forming a half-encirclement formation. They all emitted energy waves, colliding with Han Xiao's aura. The energy readings in the field soared rapidly, and the space-time stability rate began to fluctuate greatly. Just as the two sides were about to clash, another mechanical deity suddenly appeared in the mechanical race fleet. It was Manison, instantly attracting everyone's attention. The next moment, Manison suddenly threw the mechanical Emperor Trident in his hands toward Han Xiao. The pile of universal treasures on the mechanical deity's body also disintegrated and flew toward Han Xiao. Han Xiao reached out and caught the mechanical Emperor Trident that was wrapped in electric arcs. Manison's mechanical deity equipment was also loaded onto his mechanical deity's body, completing the integration seamlessly. The control was handed over to Han Xiao, and the appearance of the mechanical deity immediately became much more gorgeous. He looked back in surprise and heard Manison speak in the channel. "Since they're outnumbering me, I'll lend you my weapon. Although I don't need it, thanks." Han Xiao weighed the mechanical Emperor Trident with complicated feelings. Old Manison has always valued the confidentiality of technology and treated these universal treasures like his wives. Usually, I can only steal them secretly, but now he's actually willing to lend them to me. F***CK, I'm touched. Han Xiao turned to look at Claudia and the others, who were waiting for him. He skillfully twisted the halberd shaft, and streams of cold psionic energy flowed on the halberd blade, leaving a wave-like afterimage on the retina of the spectators. "Old Manison, since you're so generous this time, I'll show you the new job of mechanic." As soon as he said that, streams of blood energy suddenly exploded, quickly crawling all over the body of the mechanical deity, and its appearance underwent subtle changes. These endless streams of blood energy seemed to be weaving flesh and blood on the mechanical deity's body. A strange energy wave spread out, bringing an even stronger pressure to the beyond grade as present. Claudia and the others, as well as Manison, were all shocked. They stared at Han Xiao, whose appearance was rapidly changing, in surprise. Why is this guy's mechanical deity different from the others? Thank you for the 10,000 reward from the short and powerless leather armor. Thank you for the 10,000 reward from Qi Jiang. End of chapter. Chapter 1323. In the blink of an eye, the black mechanical deity changed its appearance. Countless pieces of flesh grew out from the gaps of the mechanical structure like the roots of a plant, quickly taking root in its enormous body. The original mechanical body seemed to have turned into a skeleton, and the knotted flesh covered it. It turned from a mechanical giant into a biochemical giant. During the transformation process, the energy fluctuations released by Han Xiao seemed to be magnified at the same time, and the individual energy readings that broke the record were displayed on the radar screens of the various battleships. At the same time, the bright red blood energy and the golden mechanical force arcs intertwined with each other. Like steam, they continuously emitted from the surface of the mechanical deity. It was very eye-catching, and the surrounding mechanical army reflected the light, making the battlefield look golden red. Claudia and the others looked at this scene in shock. They only felt a vague pressure coming at them, and their hearts palpitated, awakening the memories that had been sealed for a long time. This feeling was like the life-level pressure they had experienced when they were young. It had been a long time since they had entered the beyond grade A realm. What the hell is this? I've never seen a mechanical deity of this type. Olu's expression changed drastically. I've never seen other mechanics use it either. It's most likely Black Star's self-created technology. It seems to have the shadow of the polar channel flow. It should be some kind of explosive method. It doesn't look simple. Be careful. Claudi's expression was extremely solemn. On the other side, Manison also opened his eyes wide in shock. What kind of move is this? As a veteran mechanic, he actually did not understand at first and was very confused. This does not look like something a mechanic should do. What kind of things does Black Star usually research? However, after taking a closer look, Manison suddenly noticed some details. There seems to be traces of felon technology. Could Black Star have reverse-trained felons? Manison was a little confused. Just as everyone was shocked, the space around the mechanical deity trembled, and an energy ring suddenly exploded where the mechanical deity was. When they looked again, the huge body of the mechanical deity suddenly disappeared from where it was, leaving behind a series of electric traces. It had already arrived in front of Claudi and the others. It was as though it had teleported, and its size did not slow down its speed at all. A wave of blue psionic energy swept up by the halberd, as if it had pierced through the dark curtain of the universe and instantly arrived before Claudi's eyes. Get a ripple fist, vortex blade. At this critical moment, Claudi took a deep breath and absorbed the dark energy that filled the universe. It rolled over like a tide and collided with the halberd blade. Bang! The next moment, a circular shock wave suddenly burst out from the point of collision. Claudi's figure shot out like a cannonball. Like a beam of light, he instantly pierced through a row of battleships, leaving behind a series of openings. In just one exchange, the national pillar of the Red Empire, the Dark Emperor, was sent flying. The many direct beyond grade as immediately reacted. They did not have the time to be shocked and immediately used their own methods to cooperate with each other and surround Han Xiao. The battle instantly began. At the same time, Claudi's serious voice sounded in the team channel. Don't fight him head-on. Claudi finally stopped his momentum and ran back to the battlefield. His entire body was covered in a crystal yellow prismatic shield, which was now filled with cracks. This shield was not his skill, but a protective universal treasure that he had activated. It had extremely strong defensive power. Since the three universal civilizations had sent them, the direct members, to suppress Black Star, they naturally would not be stingy with their universal treasures and gave a few to each direct member. Although he was not injured, the power of Han Xiao's stab still made Claudi speechless. Although the defense of this protective universal treasure he used was not as strong as the space-time amber, it was still extremely outstanding. If the peak damage did not reach the standard, it could almost be immune to all attacks. Even he would have to charge up for a while before he could break it. He did not expect Han Xiao to shatter it so easily. Hearing Claudi's reminder, the dozen or so direct beyond grade is spread out and surrounded him. The mechanics summoned their troops, and the mages also summoned their summoned creatures, covering the sky and restraining Han Xiao. At the same time, Han Xiao's mechanical army also followed and participated in the battle. Both sides had their human wave tactics, and it immediately turned into a huge chaotic battle. Han Xiao turned into a mechanical deity, and the mechanical emperor's sacred halberd swung wildly, cutting through the sea of people. Basically, he would be injured or killed if he touched the halberd. As the halberd swept past, large swaths of enemy troops were crushed. Their long-range weapons were not idle either. They continuously unleashed their firepower and chased after the direct beyond grade as. Their bodies were also covered with electromagnetic, spatial, and other force fields. Once they got close, they would either be frozen in midair or crushed. This form of the mechanical deity was the product of Han Xiao's imitation of SWY-001. It was called Mechanical Deity Semi-Living Body, with SWY-001 as the blueprint. It was a special transformation technology formed by fusing many abilities. It was the advanced version of the mechanical deity, and its various functions were much higher than the normal version. The prerequisite was not only polar channel flow, blood rage, but also Hela's death energy and Aurora's life energy. Over the years, he had studied the principles and characteristics of these two special energies through the energy analysis of the God character summon card. He had obtained some results and fused them, which allowed the blood energy to turn into flesh and blood again. At the same time, he did use part of the principles of the Felon technology to successfully balance the symbiotic relationship between the supercells and the mechanical structure. These flesh and blood tissues greatly increased the output of energy. However, the reason why it was semi-living body was because the functions of the flesh and blood tissues were not complete enough. The ideal state was the model of SWY001, where the flesh and blood tissues both increased the output of energy and provided energy. It was balanced and perfect, like an independent life form. However, Han Xiao did not completely replicate this mechanism. The flesh and blood cells that covered the mechanical deity only increased the output of energy, but it was very difficult for them to generate energy. This meant that the energy consumption increased, but the upper limit of his mana did not change. The supply broke the balance. He did not know if it was because the flesh and blood of a single person formed some kind of conservation, but he could not reach the state of SWY001. As a result, the consumption of maintaining mechanical deity, semi-living body, was extremely high. Even a peak beyond grade A's mana bar could not handle it. However, Han Zhao's evolution path had reached the peak of the void system and was already connected to the void dimension. Just like Kisui, he could borrow the power of the void. Even if he did not take a beating, he could still absorb an almost infinite amount of mana. Han Zhao's instantaneous burst of power was too shocking, and the direct beyond grade as covered their heads and fled. However, after the initial shock, Claudia and the others gradually adapted to this pressure. The two sides fought fiercely, and it was difficult to tell who had the upper hand. Claudia and Olu were both peak beyond grade, as in the first tier. Their energy ranks were definitely over 90,000, and they had received all kinds of enhancements. Although they were not Han Zhao's match in a one-on-one battle, when they worked together, their combat power increased exponentially. This was especially so when their Esper abilities were the type of firepower bombardment, so they did not care about the amount of mana they had. They were extremely suitable for this kind of large-scale team battle. Together with their various protective universal treasures, they took on more than 50% of Han Zhao's firepower. Furthermore, Claudia and Olu had a group of strong teammates. They were not the only direct beyond grade, as whose energy ranks were over 70,000. Most of the people guarding the secondary dimension bases were elites, and they usually did not show their faces. ZZZ. Streaks of plasma arcs of various sizes formed jumping lightning chains and rampaged through the mechanical army, causing massive damage. Guzer was wrapped in bright blue lightning, and he created a lightning storm all by himself. From time to time, he would raise his hands and shoot out countless electromagnetic cannons, which bombarded Han Zhao's protective force field and exploded into sparks. He was someone who joined the army in the same era as Claudia. Although his potential was not as great as Claudia's, he was still a powerful beyond grade A super. Otherwise, he would not have been sent by the dynasty to guard the secondary dimension outpost all year round. On the other side, Saint Monin, who was disguised as a monk, flashed through the mechanical army with the help of some kind of phase-shifting universal treasure. His punches and kicks were neither fast nor slow, and it was as if they were hitting an invisible barrier. The particles in a large area resonated, causing continuous vibration damage to Han Zhao's mechanical army. Although he was a pugilist, the large number of universal treasures on him made up for many of his shortcomings. Army leader Padro summoned countless summoned creatures and alchemy golems to fight with Han Zhao's mechanical army. There were also many boss-level units that did not care about casualties and crazily restrained Han Zhao's apostle weapons. Army Flag, Enid continued to activate her ability, providing a large-scale buff to all her allies present. The 13 direct beyond grade, as were not only individually strong, but their teamwork was also very good. Together with their universal treasures, they were in a stalemate with Han Xiao for a while and even resisted the pressure of dozens of apostle weapons. Han Zhao's side was not to be outdone either. The universal treasures he had built over the years took turns to be used. Even when facing such a luxurious lineup, he was still able to attack and defend. After sending Claudia flying with his halberd again, Han Zhao glanced at the battlefield and thought quickly. Although the battlefield was in a stalemate, he was not under much pressure. The main reason was that the threat of his opponents was limited. Although he would not be able to break through the encirclement of these people in a short time, the situation was not dangerous. He had the absolute advantage in terms of individual strength. As long as he fought them one-on-one, he would be able to crush them. Be it Claudia or Ulu, neither of them would be able to block his ferocious attacks. However, the others would definitely come up to restrain him and work closely together to resolve this danger. Let's start with the weak link first and find a breakthrough. The essence of a group fight was to catch one person and beat them up. Han Zhao changed his target without hesitation. With a turn of his halberd, he charged toward one of the weaker direct beyond grade as. Seeing this, the other direct beyond grade as hurriedly gathered their firepower. Han Zhao was not bothered. Bathed in the cannon fire, the mechanic emperor's sacred halberd flew up and down, slashing his opponent until they were in a mess. Boom! The huge halberd blade smashed down again, and blood suddenly exploded in midair. This direct beyond grade, it was sent flying and heavily injured. Han Zhao was about to rush up and finish him off, but the other 10 or so people did not care about their injuries and held him back. On the other side, a tractor beam shot out from the main ship of the 3 universal civilizations and sucked the injured away. The next moment, another 3 direct beyond grade as flew out of the main ship and joined the battle. Han Zhao's opponents suddenly increased to 15. The situation returned to a stalemate, and the pressure increased. Seeing this, Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. Adding fuel to the fire, he immediately understood the plan of the 3 universal civilizations. They would leave a group of direct beyond grade as behind. As long as someone was heavily injured by him, they would immediately bring the injured back for treatment. At the same time, they would send more people to join the battle. This would give the direct beyond grade as a chance to rest and recover. This was equivalent to going up and fighting a few rounds before coming down to rest. Then, someone else would go up and continue fighting, making use of their advantage in numbers. After all, Han Zhao was only one person and could not rest. Meanwhile, the 3 universal civilizations had dozens of direct members, so they had made up their mind to take turns fighting him. They would exhaust him until he ran out of ammunition. They wanted to win, but they did not want to suffer any casualties. TSK enough. Han Zhao curled his lips and did not say anything. After all, there was no rule that said the 3 universal civilizations could not fight like this. Since they want to fight a war of attrition, let's see who can last longer. He shook his head, threw away all distracting thoughts, and focused on the battle. The 2 sides fought endlessly. This battle lasted for 6 days and 6 nights. The battlefield had been moved many times. The battlefield was filled with mechanical debris and the corpses of summoned creatures. The size of the troops on both sides had shrunk significantly, be it Han Zhao's mech legion or the various direct beyond grade as. Both sides suffered heavy casualties. The mechanical deity that Han Zhao had transformed into was still fighting fiercely with Claudia and the others. However, in comparison, Han Zhao was still full of energy. Many of the direct beyond grade, as were already showing signs of fatigue. The number of direct beyond grade, as fighting at the same time, had increased to 21. After 6 consecutive days of high-intensity battles, most of them were exhausted, and their condition was constantly deteriorating. Even after more than 10 rounds, they still could not hold on much longer. The news media did not miss a single second, broadcasting everything in real time. Not many galactic residents could stay in front of the screen, but no matter when they turned on the program, they would still see the scene of the 2 sides fighting fiercely. Who knew how many people prayed day and night for Black Star to lose quickly? However, Despite being surrounded by such a luxurious lineup, Black Star was still as strong as ever, not showing any signs of losing. Many galactic residents went from shock at the beginning to despair and finally numbness. They stared blankly at the fierce battle on the screen, their minds blank. What kind of monster is Black Star? Doesn't he know how to get tired? Seeing that there was no hope of ending the war, even more galactic residents were flustered and exasperated. They racked their brains to attack Han Xiao, as if being strong had become a sin. All their anger, panic, and dissatisfaction found an outlet to venting on Han Xiao. It was as if they were powerless. The morale of the three universal civilization soldiers had been getting lower and lower over the past few days. They were shocked out of their wits by Black Star's strength. Their own upper echelons had given up their pride and attacked him with numbers for a few days. It was already embarrassing enough to fight him one after another, but now, not only were they unable to take him down, they were even killed. Weren't they still being beaten up? The Beyond Grade, as who were watching the battle from various channels, were even more shocked. They knew how difficult it was better than anyone else. It was as if they were seeing Han Xiao for the first time. They were all shocked. Although they had always known that their president was very strong, this was way too strong. In the history of supers, there had never been such an epic battle record. Many Beyond Grade, as could only sigh at their inferiority. The way they saw it, with the strength Black Star displayed, he had probably surpassed all the Beyond Grade as recorded in the history of the explored universe. What the F*** is Old Black Still Human? I finally understand the meaning of the version name. Is this the meaning of the Black Star's era? This is way too strong. Who else is there? Compared to the others, the players were the most excited. After watching the action movie for 6 days, they were already boiling. No matter what the reactions of the various parties were, the battle still continued. Clang, clang, clang. The halberd danced and chased after one of the direct Beyond Grade, as shattering the other party's shield and causing blood to splatter in midair. Just as Han Xiao was about to deal the finishing blow, Claudi and Ulu blocked in front of him again. Dark energy and gold energy shot out and clashed with the halberd. Boom! A dazzling explosion occurred. Claudi and Ulu retreated with blood spurting out of their mouths. Their injuries worsened again. At the same time, the heavily damaged mechanical emperor's sacred halberd finally could not bear the burden anymore. It shattered into pieces and exploded into the sky. Han Zhao's hands were empty. He looked down and scanned the surroundings. All the direct Beyond Grade, as who surrounded him, were injured and exhausted. Looks like you guys won't be able to last much longer. Han Xiao clenched his fists and took out a close combat mechanical weapon that looked like a spear. It was black and gold all over, and the tip of the spear was a hexagonal pyramid. It was also a universal treasure that came from Jay's technology treasure. Claudi coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. He forced himself to focus and said, "You don't have many troops left either. It's enough. You and Ulu, on the other hand, don't seem to be able to last much longer. The others can take turns, but you guys can't leave. Can you still hold on?" Han Xiao did not mind. Claudi was silent. He could not refute. The other direct members could take turns to rest, but without him or Ulu, the team would definitely not be able to stop Black Star. They would only be destroyed. Therefore, in the past 6 days, the two of them had not rested at all. They were covered in wounds. Although they did not lack energy, their injuries were not light. They were almost at the end of their rope. If only the God's Chosen was willing to help. Unfortunately, he had been watching coldly from the sidelines for the past 6 days and did not make a move at all. It was as if he was really just there to support them. There were only 2 days left until the deadline. The mission given by the higher-ups would probably not be completed. Just as Claudi decided to give it one last try, a helpless sigh suddenly sounded in the team channel. This time, a figure flew out from the main ship of the three universal civilizations and entered the battlefield. Everyone turned around, and their expressions changed. It was Wernos, who had been silent for a few days. Ignoring his teammates, Wernos looked up at Han Xiao, shook his head helplessly, and sighed. "Black Star, although we've only met once, I actually admire you a lot and don't want to fight with you. Unfortunately, I'm still a direct member of the Arcane Church. I can't disobey orders." Then, ignoring everyone's reaction, Werno stretched out his finger and pointed at Han Xiao. An invisible energy vibrated, and a white gold light suddenly flew out of the mechanical deity's body and entered Werno's body. At this moment, the phantom of a huge mechanical deity suddenly appeared from his back. The next moment, this mechanical deity separated from his main body and quickly materialized. It had Werno's face, but its appearance was extremely similar to Han Zhao's mechanical deity, as if they were twins. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.